Hey, what's up everybody? It's Lids, and we're back for some more Hades 2 full release edition. And last time we had our first run as of the full release, and we went down into the underworld to defeat Kronos and finally see what is on the other side of that door after the final confrontation. However, this time round, I'm thinking we will check out what is one of the main differences between Hades 1 and Hades 2. And so I'll try to continue to be a little bit spoiler sensitive as we were with the previous run, or at least attempting to walk that line a little bit between doing that and at the same time checking out the new things that have been added with the full release. But we will this time go for, I think, this weapon, which is the skull. And the way that this one works is basically that we have our basic attack in which we throw a projectile, and we actually have ammo with this. We have 4 skulls, and if we use them all, then we can't attack again until we pick them back up, or eventually they will come back to us automatically. So they do a fairly large burst of damage, but because you have that ammo limitation, it's potentially a little bit tricky. Then that is our special. And then cast is the way casts usually work. But if you do charge stuff, this is what the charged attack looks like. Still uses one of the skulls. And our charged special looks like that, which is pretty cool. So I'm thinking we're going to go with this one. This is the base aspect of the skull. Now, as I kind of alluded to before, there are technically different variations on each of the weapons, but we're going to start with the basic one, at least for today, again, in part to be a little bit spoiler sensitive. As for our keepsake, to start things off here, I do oftentimes like to begin with the gold purse, so we'll roll with that. But the thing that I was alluding to before was that we can go down into the underworld in Hades 2, but we can also go up to the surface. Now, this is a direction that will not immediately be available to you upon starting Hades 2, but after a little while, it will become an option. And in general, as we will soon see, the enemies and locations will be different. Overall, going up is a little bit more challenging than going down, and also because you unlock it a little bit later, you're probably going to have a little bit less practice with the enemies and encounters here than you are down below. So it's a little bit of a double whammy in that way. But here we go.
You got that bloody titan, didn't you? Don't feel too bad you couldn't end him altogether. Not like any of the rest of us were able to, as you can plainly see. Instead, mayhaps go kick him while he's down. Happy to help with that.
So obviously last time we defeated Kronos, which is what Hestia is referring to here, and Hestia is a goddess who did not exist in Hades 1, if my memory serves correct. I think that was the case, so very cool to see her making an appearance in Hades 2 as a full-blown boon-giving goddess. So we have the option here to get Scorch on our special. So we're looking at our special previously. As for how I like to build runs with this weapon, I do like the base attack, and I like the charged special. So this would affect both our base and our charged special. It's rarity, so it's a little bit better. The Scorch means that afflicted foes take 100 damage accrued from this every 1 second. So it's a damage over time effect, and this actually is pretty strong. I have not done much Hestia-related boon acquiring in my previous runs, but then there was a shortened challenge optional run that I did a little while back in which the game was seeded a bit to give us a bunch of Hestia stuff, and I was pleasantly surprised. So I feel like I may have been selling her a little bit short, not giving her enough opportunities here. Whenever our attacker special deals damage, we restore magic. That long-term could be very useful. I'm kind of tempted by that, to be honest with you. Even if the short-term, this would be the most beneficial. Let's go with that. Okay, so, as I said, different enemies in this area relative to the underworld. So you're seeing what look to be zombie-like enemies, and they do have basically a melee slam of some variety, and then this can create more of the zombies, as we kind of just saw there. And the way that this specific aspect works for the skull is that with each subsequent skull that we throw, it starts dealing more damage. So the first one doesn't hit that hard, but then by the time we're throwing the last one, it actually does hit quite hard. And fishing opportunity, one moment, please. Ooh, quick one. There we go. Oh, I got stuck on this rock for a second, to the point where I thought the game was stopping deliberately and being all like, oh, Lids, you have to pay attention, there's going to be a cutscene, that fish was especially important. No, not really. Okay, but we are now going to see some new varieties of enemies that we did not see in the previous room. These ones I find particularly annoying, because they have a very quick string of attacks that can deal a large burst of damage if you are not prepared to deal with them. Fortunately, it did not let them hit us that time round, but it can add up pretty quickly. This is also collectible. Nab that. And then this is Hermes.
She's rather spry despite her age, and likes to play with fire too. Still just a kid at heart. One of those wee scary ones, mind.
Okay. So, oh, the other thing worth mentioning is I alluded to this before our previous run as well, but there are also various ways in which we can add difficulty modifiers to the run, which do potentially give you more rewards. I deliberately did not activate any this time round, again, in part to avoid spoilers for those things, and also to just make it more likely that we make it all the way to the end on our first run here and see all that there is to see, and then we can start reintroducing, really, these extra layers of complexity. Okay, and the other thing, which I did not note, but will look familiar to many of the people who were playing Hades 1, there is also a Grave Thirst, or a bonus bones weapon that you will eventually unlock. And what that does is, for each individual run, there will be a specific weapon, and in this case it was the skull, and that's why I chose to do it, that will give you extra bones based on how many rooms you complete in your run. So if you are willing to be flexible and choose a specific weapon, then you get a little bit of bonus resources. So I do really like Hermes, especially early in a run, because he has several boons that can really add up over time with how much value they give you. This one is long-term quite good, but short-term not so great. This one, on the other hand, your first purchase in each location costs 15% less, and another item appears afterward. Now, the earlier you get this, the more total gold you're going to save, and the more total bonus items you are going to receive. So this is really good at this stage in the game. Otherwise, we can dash 30% more frequently, which defensively is a really big deal as well, but I think we're going to take this one, just given the timing of it all. We did get the mana recovery as our first boon from Hestia, so we've yet to really pick up anything that directly improves our damage, but we're here at the city of Aphira, which is the first big location on the surface, and this area functions differently than the first area in the underworld, and that is because if we go to one of these bird cages, and there are several in this area, you'll see there are no enemies in here. However, it's this big city that gives us the option to go into any of a number of rooms in whatever order we would like. You'll see in the top left corner there it says pylons remaining 6. Functionally, what that means is that we can go into 6 rooms. Each time we do, we'll break down one of these pylons until eventually, once we've completed all those, we'll be able to proceed into the next area. So it gives us some flexibility to approach this in any of a number of ways. And we will see that we have a hammer, which in a vacuum would typically be the most valuable option we have here. So I'm eyeing that, especially early on. And so typically, in this case, when you're doing a surface run, it makes sense, go to one of these bird cages early, scout out, and make a bit of a plan for how you want to approach this floor, and then of course you can adjust if you get something that was unexpectedly better or worse than expected, but giving yourself a bit of a go-to is nice, so that you aren't just randomly wandering around. And it does help once you have a sense of what some of these things are, of course. So, for those of us who have been playing the early access for a while, these are familiar icons. The hammer, we saw that in the previous run, that is generally very good, and from a gold standpoint, if you want to use that as the metric, it's worth 200 gold, which indicates, one would assume, it's generally quite valuable. Then we have the hands with the speech bubble on the right side. That is the friendly NPC icon. And that, in this case, there is a new NPC for this floor, and that one is oftentimes good to do early as well. So those are the two that catch my eye immediately. Then, otherwise, we have Selene in the bottom left corner, which if we are going aggressively with the spending magic, getting a hex that gets powered up by that magic could also be quite useful. So that's potentially something worth considering. Otherwise, Hestia on the right side, we already have one Hestia boon, so there may be potential to go even bigger on that if we go there. And then, not sure if we've seen the one that looks like a sun yet on our previous run. No, we definitely didn't, because I was kind of in the back of my mind hoping that we would see it, and then we didn't. But that is also one that I like. I won't tell you who it is in case you're new to this stuff, but let's hop in here. As I said, it's the friendly NPC icon, and this is a new person, specific to this floor.
Death cap.
And who is this?
A certain thought. Welcome.
Well, it's a witch, of
Lady
course.
Medea.
It's Lady Medea. And I feel like we didn't really discuss this at all in the previous run, so again, at least for the case of, or for those who are new to Hades 2, we're kind of a witch, and by kind of a witch, I mean we are basically a witch in addition to technically being a goddess as well. Hecate is big time a witch, and so we're learning from her. Again, she's our mentor in a multitude of ways, but Medea is kind of like-minded from that standpoint as well. Admittedly, I don't know as much about her mythological background, so I don't really know if I assume she's not a goddess or demigod, or even like, I guess demigod's possible, but she's a witch, most importantly.
Hearsay has been wafting lately on the winds about what ails the mountain of the gods. You've been heading that way. What's going on?
So we are on the surface now, rather than being in the underworld, which is a big deal by Hades 1 standards. And in terms of what direction we are going in, no, we are not going into the underworld. We are going ever upward in this case.
If the hearsay concerned an ancient and enormous monstrosity looking to crush Olympus to pieces, assuming the Titan's legions dare to shoot first, it's not hearsay.
There may be another different antagonist when we go in this direction.
Oh my. Then I know which monstrosity you mean. And you intend to challenge him and all the rest? You're entirely mad, sorceress. But so's the world over.
Indeed. Okay, so she gives us 3 options to choose from, and some of these can become very strong, especially if you get them early on. So we have Malice in Kind. Whenever a foe makes you use a Death Defiance, that foe loses 15% of its life. Death Defiance, we talked about it a little bit last time, but we didn't actually use any in our previous run. It's the same as how it is in Hades 1, so if you are familiar with that, then it's largely unchanged here. Basically, it's a respawn. It's a revive. It continues the encounter where you left off, but instead of dying, you just come back with usually half of your health. And in some cases, in our case from Arcana cards, you can get up to 3 at the start of a run, and there may potentially be ways to increase that number a bit more. So, in this case, when we use that, the enemy that does the lethal blow to us takes what may look to be a fairly small fraction of damage. However, it's worth considering that in many cases, those enemies who will be causing us to use Death Defiance will be bosses. So against a basic enemy, 15% health, it's like 1 hit, not a huge deal. However, if it's against a boss, that could be pretty significant, especially if you're using multiple Death Defiances against a specific boss, then that can really add up. So don't sell this one short, especially if you do have a lot of death defiances, but let's see what the others are. Life from the Dead. After a foe is slain, it has a 20% chance to drop 10 healing, limit 1 per location. I've taken this many times before, at least a few times before. Be wary, it's somewhat easy to miss the visual icon of where you pick up this healing. I've definitely skipped it accidentally on several prior occasions. Otherwise, we go Enfeeblement of Cowards. Foes' range shots have 40% less travel speed, which doesn't sound that exciting, but in many cases, some of the most powerful enemies, the things that make them so dangerous, is they have a bunch of projectiles that they shoot at you that go in any of a number of directions. So slowing those down makes it easier to avoid them and probably translates to you taking significantly less damage. So I think I will still go with Malice and Kind here.
A discerning choice.
Alright, so we get that bonus, and there are no enemies in this area, it's just Medea here. So maybe not a horrible place to start off then. And in every area in this floor, we need to destroy these objects before we are allowed to proceed. In this case, it's quite straightforward because, again, there are no enemies, so you just do that. But you did see that there were some shades, some ghosts that shot out from that object when we destroyed it. If we were in a room that had a bunch of enemies in it, then that item would be there, even at the very start of the encounter, and it's up to you to choose when to destroy it. You can wait until the very end, once all the enemies are down, and then it's like this. You just take your time and take it out, no big deal. However, if you do destroy it when there are still enemies, those shades will actually go out and deal damage to the other enemies in the area. So it is a half-decent source of a burst of damage, so it is worth considering when you might want to break them for that reason. Every once in a while, there will be a small number of optional enemies that are just hanging out, loitering in town here, so just worth keeping an eye out every once in a while. Okay, but I was thinking it's going to be this hammer next. Double heart, I didn't mention it, but that is generally quite valuable. That's almost like 2 rooms worth of value. Double magic depends on what exactly we're trying to do, but that could be good too. But let's see what we can do with the hammer, because this has the potential to be somewhat build-defining. Why, hello!
Hold, sister. Remember, not a word about before or else. We can have ourselves another happy massacre and then be on our way.
So this is Heracles. You may be familiar with him. You may be more familiar with him being named Hercules, which I think is technically the Latin/Roman naming for him, pronunciation, spelling, whatever you want to call it. But it's the same guy. And he is, in many ways, kind of like the equivalent of Nemesis on the surface. He is our rival in this direction.
And then perhaps we'll meet again on my way to the summit, if the conditions are just right. Wouldn't that be nice?
And won't go too far into spoiler territory for those of you who are new, but let's just say our relationship with Heracles has gotten a little more complicated as of late.
Sure it would. We understand each other then. Now to the bloodletting at hand.
But now, at the moment, this is going to be like the Nemesis encounter, a bit of a race between us and Heracles. So here is the destructible container, and I may even go after it very early on. Technically, against him, I think you're supposed to go after the enemy here that is marked. As is also the case with Nemesis. Basically, he has a ginormous burst of damage. Oh, what is this? Oh, okay. He has a ginormous burst of damage. So, for the most part, if he attacks an enemy, I did not even see the icon there. If he attacks an enemy, they're going to get one shot, but he's slow. And unlike most Nemesis encounters where it's basically just keeping track of how many kills do you have versus how many kills does Nemesis have, and whoever gets more gets the reward. So it's kind of all or nothing. In this case, however many of those marked enemies we kill dictates how much money we get. So it could have just been 20 or 40, but in this case, 120 is pretty solid, because that's more than a dedicated gold room worth of rewards.
There's no more work here to be done, but it never ends. No hard feelings, by the way, about before.
So it's basically just 2 rooms worth of value in one.
Oh, none at all. I always wondered what it would feel like to get struck full on by the force of your club, and now I don't.
Nor do I like leaving any room for doubt. And if you need a reminder about my club, you know where to locate me.
No thanks.
Fight on.
Alright. And then he is on his way. So, again, you can choose when to destroy the pylons. I did it in the encounter itself to help give ourselves an extra burst of damage. But we still get the hammer. And let's see what our options are here. Your attacks fire your shells all at once in a spread pattern. So this one is interesting. It's not necessarily something you always want to do. Because remember, when we run out of all of our shells, which is the technical term for the skulls, then we can't attack until we retrieve them. So if you fire all of them at once, then you have to immediately go and retrieve them. Otherwise, you can't use your attack. You can still use your special, you can still use your cast, but it potentially leaves you quite hamstrung. However, it does give you a humongous burst of damage. So if you can deal with the potential downside, then it does have a big upside as well. Otherwise, after your dash or specials, your attacks are faster and have better base power. That's not a percentage, that's a flat amount that's getting added. And it's decent? Otherwise, your shells fire your charged attack whenever retrieved, but they make us lose magic in the process. We did technically get a very early magic restoration boon, even before we had much reason to use our magic. So we're maybe a little more willing to deal with this than we would have otherwise been, but it's still a little dangerous without us having boosted our flat magic at all, though there is a double magic room we could potentially go into next. So I'm a little on the fence as to which direction we want to go in here. There are some potential synergies with this wide grin that can make it unbelievable if you can find ways to more easily get those shells back, or maybe even have benefits for when you do not have your shells. But it can, as I said, leave you in a tricky situation if you're not careful. This is probably the most straightforward. This does have the other downside I was talking about before. Whenever retrieved. I didn't realize there's no icon saying that I haven't taken this before. So apparently I have done it at least once, but I don't remember it at all. Maybe we'll try this. It's fun. It is fun. We just need to be careful. Now there are also occasionally little mini side areas in these rooms that can give you additional rewards, but not seeing any here. I mean, we certainly got our fair share of value from this room already, just from having the Heracles encounter. Okay, so this was the double magic room that I was referring to, and also this would be helpful too. But we did not go in the super magic spending direction. We instead went in the, we need to be careful if we do find ourselves using all of our shells early. Otherwise, we could be in a place where it's difficult to deal damage. That's the direction we went in. So, we have 4 more rooms. I would like the double life, because that's just really good value. So that gives us 3, and... I mean, I do, even without us having anything that specifically is tailored toward spending magic, I do really like the charge special with this weapon. So, I wouldn't be opposed to going Selene. So if we do double health, double magic, Selene... Actually, you know what? I think we go Selene first. Do we? So there's some potential for Selene to give us direction for which boon... which god-giving... or which boon-giving god or goddess we'd want to focus on. For reasons we did not see in the previous run. And technically speaking, I'm not sure if we can do things in this sequence. It seemed as though it was allowed... or it seemed as though this would be the case when I try... Oh, right. Hold on. There you go. That is exactly the situation that I was saying might happen. These guys all have armor, makes them stronger and unstaggerable. There's us breaking that container. Yeah, so the other thing is that it does fire them out in a spread pattern. There are also other enemies that we've yet to see, including those guys right there. It does fire them out in a spread pattern. That was the charge attack on that occasion. So if you are right next to the enemy, then you're going to do a big shotgun-like effect that's going to deal a big burst of damage. If, however, you're kind of far away when you hit them, then it's going to be more of an area of effect type of situation. So that's another thing that makes it a little tricky at times to manage this hammer upgrade that we picked up. Okay, but here's Selene. Well, actually, I'm pretty sure I meant to gift something to her.
What you now seek to do. With the Titan Kronos reeling from his latest loss, it is an opportunity to aid Olympus in its plight. Shine forth then for the gods.
And you'll see here something that was the case in Hades 1 and is still the case in Hades 2. The game is written in such a way that the people you run into will acknowledge the things that you have done recently, whether that be in your previous run, here, referring to us having recently defeated Kronos, or in some cases even referring to things that have happened in your current run. Pretty sure I wanted to gift a nectar to Selene, though, because it looked like she might have had a reward for us with our next gift, but alas, that will have to wait. Okay, so here we have 3 options for our Hex, which again is the thing that is kind of like the equivalent of the Call from Hades 1, our special super ability that we can only use once we've fully charged it up, which happens from us spending magic, or in some cases, we get a little bit of automatic charge up from Arcana cards. So our Hex raises the last susceptible foe slain this encounter to fight for us for 12 seconds. Basically, we become a Necromancer, which may sound cool, and it is, although having taken this several times before, the value varies a lot depending on which enemy you resurrect, and some are stronger than others, some also just mechanically the way that they attack, they are much more consistent than others. Some will just shoot a projectile that always misses, for example, or commonly misses. And then against bosses, hexes are oftentimes really nice tools to have against them, but it's a little tricky resurrecting foes in a boss encounter because you have to wait oftentimes for there to be an adds phase before there is anyone for you to defeat and then bring back. Though in some cases there are actually some very powerful enemies, you could still do that too. Then there's Moonwater. Your Hex restores life up to 3 times, which replenishes whenever we use fountains. So the healing approach. Or our Hex launches a heat-seeking projectile that inflicts Morph on up to 5 susceptible foes. And that is actually kind of... Oh, I sort of lump it together with this one in a way in my head, because it's another way that you mess with the enemies. In this case, you deal a little bit of damage, but more importantly, transform whatever enemy you hit into a harmless little critter, like a sheep. And you can just attack that for that 4-second period without it worrying about it dealing damage to you in return, or use that to just make the encounter less hectic so that you're safer and attack other enemies while you've basically made those enemies a non-threat for that period of time. So, I will be honest with you, I don't really love any of these, because I tend to prefer the hexes that just do straightforward damage and have them be my primary damage dealer when possible. I think I probably will go Night Bloom here. Of the ones that we see, this is probably my favorite. But that's not saying much. And just to give you an example, in this case, we bring this guy back. The other tricky thing that can sometimes happen is in long encounters, like boss fights, if you have a particular enemy who you've killed most recently, and that is the one that the game is going to bring back with your Hex, then you want to keep it that way. You don't want to kill a weak enemy only for that to then become the one who's going to get revived by your Hex. And so sometimes that puts you in a tricky situation where you're like, I need to kill these enemies, but I don't want to kill these enemies because it's going to ruin my Hex. And definitely not, speaking from experience, that definitely was not the thing that made me lose a very difficult run, only by the slimmest of margins. But anyways, this is one of those small little side areas I was referring to, and actually there's a fair number of enemies in here. More powerful enemies than I expected, at least. Now we can bring you back. Who's left? There we go. Okay. Because this guy's our dude. The one with the heart above his head. That's another thing, is it can sometimes be a little tricky to know which one is yours and which one is not. But okay, so here we get a functionally free max magic upgrade, which is nice. And that's just because we went into this optional area. Obviously, a little more combat. So it's a little bit of a risk, but almost always worth going in there. And the extent to which you get bonus rewards does vary a little bit from case to case. Some are definitely better than others, but that was pretty good. Okay.
What's left of Aphira?
So, we have 3 more rooms, and the reason why I wanted to go in that room there was because, technically speaking, if you have some prior experience / inside information, there are some ways in which you can tailor your Selene hexes, or really tailor the specific gods and goddesses that you choose based on your Selene hex for additional value. And I may be messing up. I may not be remembering properly, but I think that this one is the one that combines well with the particular hex that we just chose. This is someone who I believe we saw in our previous run, if I'm not mistaken. To be honest, probably would not have chosen this room if not for us having just gotten that specific hex. But alas, we're here now. And that was the charge special, which we still have yet to upgrade, and yet it did that much damage in that much area of effect, and you understand why I like it so much, even with its relatively minimal setup. Okay, but I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not loving where our build stands right now, because it feels like we have some odds and ends, a bunch of incomplete pieces, but not a lot of stuff that just makes us straightforward better for the first boss fight. And as I said, this direction is generally, I think, more difficult than it is going down, so I would love to make some improvements before that boss.
With matter of Kronos, it may seem unconscionable that a parent could resent their own children. But let me tell you, girl, there are moments when I almost sympathize.
And coming from Hera, who is the wife of Zeus, that's, and in many ways, sort of the motherly figure of Mount Olympus. She might be the goddess of mother? What? I need to look up what her technical things that she is goddess of are. Like marriage, I think. But families, possibly, by extension, and other things similar to that. So, coming from her, that does mean something. But, okay. So, we have Hera here, and her thing is generally going to be Hitch, which basically gives us some extra area of effect on... it basically allows us to spread some of the damage to other neighboring enemies for 8 seconds. So we can do that on our special, which, as I said, our special I do really like. Even just the base charged version of it, with no boon, is already quite good. So to get 70% extra damage would be nice. Otherwise, we can make our sprint inflict Hitch on surrounding foes and deal damage. It's a pretty sizable amount of damage for a sprint, but in this case, I don't really think it has much of any area of effect, so you kind of need to run straight into enemies, which I'm not a huge fan of. So otherwise, your charge moves create a fissure that deals damage in a long line, but uses extra magic. I feel like this could be really good long-term, especially with our charge special, but it's kind of something we'd prefer to have later on, because we'd probably prefer to have the more fundamental pieces right now, so I think we probably do go with this special. I wish it was slightly higher rarity, because this is going to be one of the most important boons on this run, I think. Speaking of fundamentals, it is going to be pretty fundamental to what we're looking to do here, I think. But let us proceed here. And now it gets tricky. With only 2 rooms left, we need to be quite critical of the pros and cons. As I said, the double life, it's really hard to pass on that because that is just really good value for a single room. So I do kind of feel like we need that, even if it, in terms of offensively, it doesn't do anything for us unless we happen to get lucky with a bonus room, but obviously can't guarantee that. Otherwise, Hestia probably be the best option offensively, so we already have a little bit of Hestia synergy, although not to that much of an extent because it's more of a passive boon that we have from her, the magic regeneration. Otherwise, this one also does intrigue me, especially with the hammer upgrade that we picked up. I feel like this would probably make the most sense there. So, let's go here. We'll see if we get any bonus stuff, and then we will figure it out from there, what we want to do. Basic special. Okay, that's... I dashed through that. I'm a little annoyed that that said it hit us. And we'll break that, sure. This was a... yeah, okay, very crowded encounter at the beginning. So, no respawning enemies at all, but here's the 50 life, which is quite nice, and there is a bonus room there. Just see if there's anything else. Doesn't look like it. Okay, so let's hop on in. Ooh. Hold on, that blow up on you, and that'll do it. Okay, and get a little bit of resources here. And this is another magic upgrade. Right, we've actually gotten 2 free max magic upgrades from these side rooms. So that's kind of the biggest difference maker that we've had of that sort. There is a double magic room that still remains, and so you could make the case for that, but I feel like we can feel good about skipping it because of those free rooms that we got, in addition to us already having a magic regeneration boon fairly early on. We kind of ended up prioritizing that over direct damage in a way. So now, what does that mean for this? Want to be thinking about the boss? As I said, I feel like we want to go for this one, which don't know if we saw this guy in our previous run. I don't think we did. Don't think we did. In general, probably a good idea to try to target... Again, frustrated with that said. We technically got hit, but it said blocked because our familiar can do some blocking for us. I think the guy that we summoned is not a particularly useful one. You probably want to try to focus in on those sort of buildings early on, because if you don't, they will summon more of the zombie enemies. And those guys, I mean, not that they're particularly powerful, they are pretty weak and pretty easy to avoid, but it's more enemies in total. So if you can avoid that, you'd probably like to... Oh, I could have sworn that guy just walked in there and basically...
Rest again for now.
Was going to guarantee that he was going to take himself out. So this is Apollo.
Have you? I'm fortunate to feel loved, but Hera, well, I'm not her favorite. As long as no one leads her to believe you're Zeus's child, you'll be just fine.
Yeah, there's a bit of a history there. So Apollo was possibly the most significant god or goddess who was not in Hades 1. So I remember in Hades 1 early access, I was always thinking, all right, surely this update, this is going to be the one where they add Apollo, and it just never happened. So I was very pleased to see when he was in Hades 2. And okay, we have some interesting options here. Now, the reason why I was saying this was the god that I was particularly keen on taking, and in doing so setting precedent, making him more likely to show up for the remainder of the run, is because his theme tends to be increasing our area of effect. As you see here with the Nova Strike, your attacks deal more damage in a larger area. Especially with the attack, I think that could be key, because with the hammer upgrade, where we have that fan shotgun-like release them all at once setup, making it able to either hit more enemies total, so it's consistently clearing out, or at least hitting, all the enemies in the room, or more likely to actually hit one enemy with all of those skulls, giving us better single target damage. I think that'll just make us a lot more consistent. So I was thinking about this when I went into this room. However, I'm not thrilled about the rarity or lack thereof. It's just a common. Otherwise, we can get the cast, which expands in size but doesn't directly deal damage. In fact, I think this is technically a sort of secondary cast boon from him, given how it does not deal direct damage. Then we have an infusion here, which admittedly I don't remember if we saw it all in the previous run, but this is a new type of boon for Hades 2, rather than just being a straightforward common, rare, epic, or heroic rarity of the standard sorts of boons, or duo, as I believe we saw in the previous run as well. There's also one more that I don't think saw, but let's just say there is another even higher rarity than all those other things. It's a little bit unique. But infusions are also a bit unique, because rather than giving you a straightforward boon, basically what these all do is they give you a bonus if you have reached a certain threshold for your boons, or give you incremental benefits based on how many boons you have of a certain variety. And so you may have noticed that there's a little icon next to all the boons. In this case, it looks like a little swirl, sort of like a rainbow swirl in the top right corner of those squares. And that is what element the boons are. This is also new to Hades 2, and if you press the left analog, at least on controller, you can open up this page. I don't know what it is on keyboard mouse, but what this does is it'll show you all of your boons as we've seen before. If you look at the top above where this one is, you'll see what looks like a rock with a 1 next to it, a water droplet with a 0, that swirl with a 0, a fireball with a 2 next to it, and then that sort of purple orb with a 0 next to it. These are the various elements of boons that you can have. In a vacuum, in general, they don't directly do anything, unless and until you get an infusion. So in this case, it says, while we have at least 3 fire boons, and at the moment we have 2, so we are not yet at that threshold. But if we do get there, whenever we take damage, we restore 30% of that damage over the span of 5 seconds. So basically, it's almost like you're mitigating 30% of the damage that you take, except not immediately. So it's a defensive boon, and it potentially can be pretty valuable, especially early on, since there's lots of time for this to benefit us over the course of the run. If this were higher rarity, I would almost certainly take it. I think we might take this, even if we are not quite able to activate it yet. So we'll have it. It'll be in the background, but it won't be doing anything unless and until we get one more fire boon. And we are very close to going into the next boss encounter, so that's what's giving me some hesitation here, is I would love to have something that would immediately benefit us for that next encounter, but long term, I suppose we'll still end up going that route. And there is one more small side room of the optional variety here, and it does have lots of enemies in it, but they are down, and it gave us a free palm. Ooh, and these, I think we might have just done this upgrade, gives us a free palm slice now, which means it will randomly upgrade one of our boons. We don't get to choose which one it is, but it will increase the level by 1, and I think it might even be the case this is the only one that is level upable. No, it is not. It was the magic restoration. Okay. Probably was not what I would have preferred to have seen. I probably would have preferred the special, because again, we're a little lacking when it comes to the direct damage dealing stuff, especially if we do find ourselves without all of these guys. Granted, I did that right in front of me where I could immediately pick them up again. Okay. I think we are good now. And so if you do just miss one of these side areas, you don't notice that it's opened up, and see there are a bunch here that are kind of closed off, boarded up, and don't have any lights coming out of them. It says exit blocked if you try to go through them. It's only if they have the light coming out that you're allowed to go through. But if you completely ignore them, or you just miss them, then you cannot go back. You can't go back to do them. So you truly just miss them. In that case, you do want to be careful. But now you'll see we have removed or deactivated all 6 of these barriers. So we can now proceed. However, there is also this shop, or not shop, this well at the middle of the town, which theoretically you can use whenever. So if you took a bunch of damage in one of the earlier rooms, you could use it now, but otherwise you will presumably want to take it before you go into the penultimate room, which is always going to be a shop. Now, we didn't have to heal on this occasion, we were full life, but we'll do it anyway. So you're guaranteed to get a shop here. And this is going to be just before the boss encounter. Let's do this, get a little bit of extra resources.
I'll use this well.
Okay, and you'll notice that everything is lighting up in green. That is because the prices have all been lowered by this boon that we picked up in the early stages. So we're getting not only a 15% discount, we are also getting the first item that we purchase. We're getting a free copy of it. So that means we very much want to buy the best thing first, which will probably be this boon right here. You could maybe make the case for the palm. We have so few upgradable boons that we are functionally guaranteed to have the option to choose whatever boon we want, if it is upgradable. But I think it's still going to be this.
Olympus, I accept this message.
Okay, we get the option to exchange a boon, and we might have seen one or two of these in the previous run, but basically this means, yeah, we definitely did. We get rid of our existing special boon and exchange it for a new Zeus boon. So we have the same total number of boons in this case. However, whenever you have one of these exchanges, it always increases the rarity by 1, and it's hard to increase the rarity of a given boon. This is one of the few ways to do it. It is also one of the only ways to get a heroic rarity boon, because usually it just goes common, rare, epic, and you can't get a heroic rarity boon to just appear outright. It only appears if you already have an epic boon and then exchange it for another boon of the same variety, 1 rarity higher, then it can be heroic. So, given how few boons we have right now, I am reluctant to go this route. We can have a dash that deals damage with lightning bolts, sort of high frequency of low damage in this case, or we can go revenge boon. If we take damage, we will strike foes for a larger chunk of damage, but afterward, it can also repeat potentially multiple times, although a relatively small percentage chance of that happening. Not a huge fan of any of these options, to be honest with you, but I guess we'll do this one.
Shocking every time.
And then now we get Hera is the bonus option for us here, the one that is reappearing, and that could be a better fit for us. So we do have the monies, so let's do it.
On my authority.
Oh, and very early on we are seeing a duo boon. In fact, one that I've never seen before. Hence the scroll icon in the bottom left corner there. Get a lot of good rarity options though. We get an epic rarity cast, epic rarity sprint. We turned this down before because I generally am not a huge fan of it. However, it is worth noting that does have a fire icon next to it. It would get us to the threshold we need for this self-healing infusion. And that is the only way we could get this before the boss encounter, which is right on the other side of this shop. So there is a case to be made for that, even if I would usually say no to it. In the short term, at least. There's a case to be made. But this duo, what's it all about? It's between Hestia and Hera, it seems. Whenever we restore magic during encounters, damage all hitch-afflicted foes. Damage from magic restored. Oh. That's very interesting. Whatever magic we restore, we deal 5 times that much damage to enemies as long as they're afflicted by hitch, which as of right now, we are doing with our special, but it would mean that going forward, we'd like to find other ways to inflict hitch as well, so we could get an attack boon from Hera, that'd be good as well. And the amount of magic restoration we have is quite important in this case as well. We did upgrade this, whether we wanted to or not. Well, now it's a little more meaningful. Magic restored per strike is 8. So that gets multiplied by 5. That turns into 40 damage per strike, potentially, just bonus damage. That sounds pretty good. Again, they need to be already inflicted by hitch. So it does have a little bit of setup to it. But if we're mindful of that going forward, it could prove to be quite interesting. Now we can get this palm, And suddenly, one could argue, we have a little more of a reason to go for the additional magic restoration, whereas otherwise I almost certainly would have gone for the straightforward damage on the special. I think that probably is still the direction we ought to go, and of course this is upgrading a boon. This is not getting an additional boon, so even though this one has the fire, this is not going to give us an extra fire boon by upgrading it, so that's not a factor to consider. I think I am still going to go this route, but of course if we do find other ways to upgrade cardio gain, it's not the worst thing in the world. It's also just one additional magic restored, which does mean 5 additional damage. I mean, I've never had this boon before, this duo boon, so I don't know to what extent we want to be going all in on it, but we'll see. Charon, thank you, sir. Okay, so now for the first boss fight on the surface. As I said, more difficult, I think, than the boss fights down below, and I don't love our build. And who is this?
Back when we first met, you seemed enormous. Much bigger than most any other foe I'd ever faced. But now, you're hardly any match for me.
Ouch.
Oh, thanks.
It's Polyphemus.
And I remember back when first we met, my sleeping schedule was completely out of whack, but it's all better now. And I've still got my figure. Enormous, was it?
Let's not get too carried away here, but yes, he is a Cyclops.
That's all a matter of perspective, as I've learned. For instance, you're quite minuscule in comparison to the father of all monsters, Typhon. He's properly enormous.
Father of all monsters.
I'll have to take your word for it. Anyways, just how big can he be? No more than 3 square meals worth, if I had to guess. Been too long since I had some monster meat.
Surely you're not trying to suggest that we are monster meat. Also, I like that he measures things by how many meals worth something is. Okay, but here we go. So he has several abilities that are a pain. I'm just gonna be honest with you. There are times, like this one, there are times when I'm not thrilled about fighting him. Despite him being the first boss, he has several large area of effects, and he just will not stop using that attack, which has very long range. And there is a chance that he has been reworked a little bit as of the full release, because I've not fought him since the full release. One thing you can do is you can dodge through that attack a little bit, and that gives you a little bit more of a window to him. He does this thing where he's kind of looking for you, and he's not immediately attacking you. But then I think that is technically what determines when he does that more targeted long-range attack. That is this one, which is pretty nasty. So it is difficult to avoid taking damage from him altogether. And he does have at least one very powerful attack that we've yet to see him do, fortunately. Okay, and he does have phases in which he summons more enemies. He has this, where he does some stomping maneuvers and creates several of those smaller circles. Oh, and now that we've killed some enemies, oh, that was bad. I did technically take damage from that. I just totally butchered the timing of it. So I summon one of these guys, and you might think, oh, that's a bigger enemy. Surely they'll be pretty good, right? But it's a good example of one that is probably more likely to just whiff completely. Another problem that you can find sometimes when you're in this fight is that that's a weaker enemy. It's a good example of he's probably just going to be bad. But let's see. There are some times when Polyphemus can kind of just like trap you in an area, trap you in a corner with his area of effect abilities, and it makes it very hard for you to avoid taking damage from him, which can be very frustrating at times, especially if you're running low on health. See, especially if he just keeps on doing this, it's like, okay, when do I want to attack you? And he does damage you if you hit him while he's in the middle of his jump. You might think, oh, he'll only deal damage once he lands. No, he does deal damage if you jump into him or if you attack him while he's mid-jump. Okay, this is his last phase now. Oh, that was horrible. I tried to get clever and use a big charge special while he was doing that, and it just did not work in the least. Instead, I was just sitting there and got absolutely clobbered. That attack is very hard to avoid because it has a humongous area of effect. Both in terms of how far it goes and in terms of how wide it is. It's very hard to sidestep it. This. They might have decreased the range of it, actually, which I think was very warranted in that case. So he would very frequently off-screen me in the past with that ability. Oop, like this. Do it again. Ooh, I just assumed that was going to kill him, to be honest with you. But there we go. He's down. Cyclops vanquished.
Fast asleep again.
There was one fairly big attack that we did not see him use,
Gemstones from the earth.
which was in large part because I, for the most part, stayed far away from him. We did take a fair bit of damage, I think in large part because of that one particular time when I was charging this up. And he just nailed me while I was doing it. But we will heal a little bit here, and then also heal here as well. One thing that I did occur to me as we were turning down some of those common rarity options was, as we did
Maybe I should switch.
in our previous run, you can time this item, this keepsake, to significantly upgrade a really low rarity boon and actually make it a lot stronger. But we kind of passed on all. Do we have any common rarity boons? Not at the moment, so unless we went out of our way to target one, it'd be a little strange to go that route here. So, and I think I meant to do this in the previous run, but I messed up the timing. You could potentially pick this up if you already have a common rarity boon, then activate this, immediately upgrade that boon, and then you're getting the value right off the bat, whereas otherwise you have to wait a while before this does anything for you, at least boon-wise. And also, you run the risk of, if you're trying to target one specific boon, you might get another common rarity boon in the meantime, and then suddenly it's a 50-50, or even 33% chance of getting the one upgraded that you actually wanted. So, don't currently have a target for you. I think, instead, this could still be the keepsake we use, in which case we just wait to apply it until after we... Yeah, one way or another. We're healing first. And we get up to max health, so that's not an issue. We could throw this on and then actually kind of make a point of taking a common rarity boon, or oftentimes second floor is my go-to for the moonbeam. As I was saying, I'm not a huge fan of the hex that we have, and we kind of saw both the upside and the downside of it in that Polyphemus fight. There were times when our necromancied ally was not especially effective, but we'll try it. We'll try it, and then this is a shop, but it works a little differently than other shops because the prices are slightly discounted. Boons would usually cost 150, and in this case it's a mystery boon. It is a boon, but we don't know who the god or goddess is going to be, so it's harder to plan around it. And the other thing, though, and so it would usually be, what, like 125, I think, in this case, so it's still a little bit less, or actually that might just be from our Hermes keepsake. The big thing, though, is you'll see it says in stock, delivered after X number of encounters. We do not get it immediately. We only get these items after the stated number of rooms. So it makes it a little tricky in that way. I do like both of these things, though, so probably will still opt to take them. Don't need the healing. And then if we take this,
Should get here soon enough.
we also have the option to take it twice, because, again, we have that Hermes boon, and I think we will opt to do it. Wait, hold on. Let me just make sure this is doing what I think. Oh, no. Okay. What this is saying is that, and this is always the case regardless of whether you have that Hermes boon, is you can pay the upfront costs, as we'll do here with the heart as well. We're going to see this happen again. If you want to get it delivered immediately, you can, but you have to pay even more gold, and at that point, it does become pretty expensive. So, gonna pay the upfront cost for both, but wait and choose not to get the expedited delivery. So that way we do still have some monies to work with. And then we'll proceed on to the next floor.
All set.
So Polyphemus is the first boss. And he is a little tricky, as I said. Now we are into the Rift of Thessaly. That is the second floor on the surface.
Too far to swim, but all those ships out there are swift.
And as you can sort of tell from that preview, and from the place where we are about to go, this is a dock. And so there's going to be a bit of a water theme here, as we are now on a boat. New enemies, some of which are really annoying on this floor, including that right there. Because that is a ginormous area of effect. And it does a pretty sizable chunk of damage, especially when things get crowded. It gets a little tricky to avoid getting hit by stuff, and then there are other enemies with really long range, so this is an area where I'm very often getting off-screened by enemies, which can get frustrating, especially if you're low on health. There are times when that may be the difference between life and death. And now here, we're staying in this small little boat, but we are getting a reward of the Selene variety, which is good, because we did take the Moonbeam. I'm going to do this to summon that big annoying enemy. He's on our team. And then these guys shoot a bunch of projectiles. They're very similar to an enemy that we saw in the underworld, except they shoot more projectiles. These skull dudes will chase after us. They're quick, and that blows up, and once it does, it creates fire where there was once just oil. These guys, it's a little hard to see them just then, but it's a dude who's in a barrel, and he has a sword. And it may look silly, but they are really annoying, because they're melee enemies, but they lunge forward with way more range than you expect them to have. So again, enemies that will very commonly either off-screen you, or if not, come close to it. And in a crowded room, when there are a bunch of enemies, you're trying to figure out what do I need to pay the most attention to. Oftentimes, they are the ones that sneak in to hit you. Here's our Selene upgrade.
The path of stars.
And we have 3 points from this boon, and then +5 from the keepsake. And the reason why I wanted to go big in on Selene and make a point of taking Hera was because one thing we didn't see in the previous run, but we do see now, is it is possible to get duo boons with Selene plus a specific god or goddess. The way that it works is that each hex has a specific god or goddess who is always the one that is paired with that particular hex. So I was pretty sure, and that guess / attempt to memorize it was correct. The hex we took is something that combines with Hera. So what it does is it gives you this god-sent version of the boon, or of the hex. Your servant is 25% faster and has a 30% critical hit chance. So that can potentially dramatically change the amount of damage that our minion does, which is why I wanted to make sure we picked that up. So that's going to cost us 4 points to get there. And the thing with God Sent, as... does it say here? Whenever you first use your hex in a location, it provides an Olympian's aid. So you can only use it once per encounter, which for long encounters is potentially significant, so you do need to be mindful of when you choose to break it out. However, usually you see the God Sent upgrades sort of in the middle here, and then there's 1 point after it, which is a way to give you one more God Sent use of your hex, specifically and exclusively in boss encounters, which is presumably when you would need it most. So that's definitely worth considering. We go 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe even 5. And then with 3 more points, we could then go and get one of these. Let's see. Your raised servants deal plus 500 damage the first time they hit. But it costs a little bit more to use the Hex. Not as concerned about the amount of magic it costs to use the Hex in this case, because this is kind of one you'd like to have a good enemy to bring back in the Hex and just have that enemy stay up and continue to do damage for you. And it's going to be a little while before you can access it because you're going to need to kill an enemy in an encounter before that even becomes an option. So that's usually the thing that's slowing you down more so than the magic charge up. Otherwise, our raised servant takes 20% of any damage we would have otherwise taken, which basically means it is a tank for us, which is quite useful as well, especially against hard encounters. Then just want to see what the blue ones are. Raised servants move and attack 70% faster. This is incredible, because as I was mentioning before, many of the people who you revive, they are either too slow or too inaccurate. Their animations may be so long that by the time they're done with those animations, the enemy they were trying to target has moved and they're basically doing nothing. But making those people 75% faster with both their movement and their attacks makes them much more consistent. Oh, and what's this? This is what I was actually looking for more than anything. This is where you get to pick a type of enemy that you really like, revive them, and just leave them there. Because as it currently stands, the base version of this Hex, you only get them for 12 seconds, and they do technically have a life bar. Whereas in this case, they have indefinite duration. They can still die from damage, but you don't have to worry about them expiring duration-wise. So, again, get a really good one, activate them, set it, and forget it. Really useful in that case. So, that does make it a little tricky. I probably would prefer this over even these guys, to be honest with you, at least initially. This can be so useful. But if we are going to go one of these routes, that does kind of dictate which angle we approach from, and also which one of these are we more concerned about. Your casts cause your raised servants to appear within the binding circle, so we can basically teleport our servants, which I think this is still far better. So I'm definitely leaning toward the top route. Probably would prefer selflessness over eruption, but I think all the other things point us in this direction. So if we go 1, 2, 3, 4, we have 4 to work with. We can do 1, 2, 3, and then maybe 4. It's a little bit preemptive for this, but it means even if we don't run into Selene, we still have access to it. You could argue that having Servitude makes this a little less meaningful. It's also just at least pay some attention to the other things we picked up along the way. After using it, we get 5% extra damage. Charges up automatically, as I said. I think for other hexes, that is meaningful to help spam it more often. This is hopefully going to be one that we just press once and don't have to press it ever again. Whenever we enter location, it's charged up 40%. Similar idea, is not really a huge problem for us. Then we have the God Sent aspect. Okay, definitely going to do this. And now, I mean, technically we could even go here, but I think that's just not that meaningful. I would like Rigor. I think it's mostly a question of, do you start going there, or do you go straight into this guy? I guess we will. Okay.
Queen Hera shall be notified at once.
So, notice how, actually, oftentimes, when you encounter Selene, when she's showing you all the various hexes, let's see. When she's showing you all the various hexes with those 3 options at the beginning, sometimes you will get a little icon next to those hexes that it's sort of like almost a lightning bolt, I think, if I remember correctly. And that is basically the signifier of this is the hex that you are currently eligible to get, or you already have the specific god or goddess who pairs up with this hex. So if you see that, that's a good sign of, okay, I have the potential to get God-sent capabilities from this hex. However, if you get Selene early, as we did, you can pick a specific hex, even if it doesn't have that God-sent duo boon signal next to it, if you know or remember which god or goddess is paired with that hex. You can then take that one and retroactively, with subsequent upgrades to Selene, still get that duo boon God-sent ability, which is what we did here. So basically, even though we didn't get the signal from the onset of the duo boon stuff, we forcibly turned it into a duo boon by making a point of taking Hera after we took the corresponding Selene hex. Okay, so we do see these guys who, as I said, have crazy range, so they're really annoying, and then these guys also have crazy range, so they're really annoying. I would probably like for this guy to be our dude, if he would cooperate and just take a tiny bit more damage. Thank you.
Grows and grows. Change of course.
Oh, and then, so, here he is. And it was right at the end of the encounter, which normally you would think, oh no, that's such a waste. But since we made it so that he's going to stay here indefinitely, not so. He's gonna hang around. And with a 75% extra speed, he can look a little silly at times. Alright, so this is going to give us magic. This is going to give us a little bit of life. Otherwise, it's mostly about the crafting resources. I think I still prefer life. And you'll see here, we have two choices for which option we want, which upgrade. That is oftentimes, but not always, the case on this floor. And so now you'll see, oh, this just got a little more exciting. The yellow circles you see on the ground are good. That is, that's a friend of ours who's helping us out. You'll see that we do have the option to reactivate our hex. I'm deliberately not doing that, because you'll notice that I was just running around doing a whole bunch of nothing, trying to find our skulls. Meanwhile, this guy killed everyone for us. And since he lasts indefinitely, we don't really have any reason why we needed to replace him. Especially because we only get one God-sent hex per encounter. So we get this. That was the quest, or the room reward that we knew we were going to see. We also get a visit from this guy who is currently hiding behind this pillar / mast, which makes him a little harder to see. But this is our friend.
How's everybody back at the crossroads lately, eh?
Icarus.
Master Odysseus putting all his plans to action at long last.
Who, I would imagine, even if you are not particularly familiar with Greek mythology, you've probably heard that name before.
Oh yes, my route through here is thanks only to him. Say, he didn't push you up to this, did he? Deploying shades with makeshift wings and explosives seems like something the great tactician would do.
So Icarus is flying around, which Icarus flying close to the sun, if that rings a bell. Yeah, it's not a coincidence that he has wings here.
I'm acting on my own. Although maybe we're all a part of the great tactician's plan and just don't realize it yet. He always says we'll have to improvise. Might be I finally took it to heart.
Alright, this is us wondering if Odysseus is the one planning all this stuff. So he will give us extra rewards. Let's see. Your special boon gains 3 levels, but we prime 35 magic, so we have less magic to work with. We do have good magic restoration, so maybe that's not that big of an issue. And we do like our special a lot. Your charge moves also deal 50 damage in an area around foes they hit, but use more magic. Again, we have magic restoration, decent magic restoration. In some ways, we want to be using magic more aggressively, so we can benefit from this and this more. Otherwise, this is the really high-risk, high-reward one. Hazard Boon. Your casts also blast the area after 4 seconds, dealing 500 damage to foes, which is a huge number. However, if we are standing there, we take damage from ourselves. So, it's risky in that way. But I feel like we get pretty good value from these, really good value, potentially, from these alternatives. So, I would potentially be fine with either of them. Do we have a preference? So Charge Special is primarily the one I'm using. Also deals 50 damage in an area around the foes they hit, giving us more area of effect. But it uses more magic, or Special. I think we prefer this, in part for the extra duo boon synergy stuff. This might be a little bit more direct damage, but it's more area of effect, area clear. And then the reason why you just saw Hermes was because these were the things that we purchased in that mini shop right as we were in between floors, that we were saying we had to wait 3 rooms before they would appear. Well, we have now done 3 rooms, so we get our life upgrade, and now this is a random boon. It'll be from Hestia, which means this will be a fire boon, which I think will be our 3rd. So that will activate this self-healing, which is nice. So we can have our sprint leave a cinder trail, and any damage you take from burning is reduced to 1. So we are not quite immune to burning damage, but much less concerned about it. We deal more damage to foes that are nowhere near other foes, 18%. Or foes perish in a blast that damages any surrounding foes. I do really like this one. Gives us lots of area clear potential, which especially alongside what we just picked up from Icarus, I think could be really useful. Not as good in terms of single target damage, so I do want to be mindful of in the future. Maybe prioritizing that a little bit more, although maybe the Hex can be a key factor there. But single target is about to be a little meaningful, because that is a skull. That means this is a mini-boss. Did we end up taking this god previously? We did, right? It was this infusion. It's Apollo. But this encounter is this guy. I've only seen this guy once or twice, to be honest with you. Not super familiar with him. Just gonna be honest with you. But what I can tell you, and what you may now be seeing, is he does have a gun. Okay, and I wasn't really sure. Ooh, and those deflect as well. Wasn't really sure which enemy we had technically summoned. So I wasn't really sure how to optimize that. Ooh. Oh, blocked from our familiar. Waiting for you to not be doing that, and then taking you out. Okay, not too bad. So yeah, I don't think this guy that we summoned was as powerful as the one we had in the previous room, and again, it's a little bit boom or bust. But as for this, theoretically a higher rarity boon from Apollo, what with this having been a mini-boss encounter, we would, technically speaking, to the extent possible, like to see as many of our basic attacks inflict hitch. We would like them to be Hera boons, basically. So if we could have a Hera cast and a Hera attack, that would be ideal. So it would, in some ways, be nice to skip this Solar Ring. Solar Might, after we take damage, automatically damage and daze all foes in the vicinity. Thought we already had a revenge boon from Zeus. We do. I honestly am not even sure I realized you could get extra revenge boons in normal circumstances. Otherwise, what's this? Oh, deal more damage until you take damage. 20%. So if you play defensively, you get a damage boost, and then if you do get hit, and you, obviously you lose it, but if you go another 15 seconds without taking damage, then you regain the damage bonus. So it is possible to get it back, even if you do end up taking a hit in a given room. So, I think I might go the revenge boon, to be honest with you. We do still have 3 rerolls. I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to using one here, because we didn't use any on the first floor. So you know what? Sure, we'll do one.
Let's try this again.
Let's just see. This is the boon that we saw before, right? But was it just rarity before? Now it's epic? I don't know. This might be identical. This is good. This is very good. If not for the duo boon, I would definitely have taken this. But, as I said, I'm being kind of greedy here, which may come back to bite me, but I'm hoping we see Hera.
Must be in the area.
Okay, now this is another mini shop that will give us delayed rewards. And technically, I guess since this isn't a full... Oh, do we get the discount with every shop we encounter? Guess so. I think we'll go Selene. I mean, that is very inexpensive. Armor, magic, I think we can
Delivery
probably
coming
skip
soon.
those. It's so inexpensive that I'm half tempted to expedite the delivery, but I think we'll still be okay. Actually, what room number is this? 28. And this is getting delivered in 8 encounters? That's a crazy amount. Okay, you know what? I think it might be worth doing this. I think it probably is. I am going to do it.
I need this right away.
I do. Because with this, we get 3 more points, which, if I recall correctly, does get us over here, making it so that our summonee gets plus 500 damage the first time they hit. Now, that is obviously just a one-time big burst, and I would probably have preferred to have gotten this one, which we are not 3 points away from. What are we getting along the way? More damage after using the Hex. Raise Servant gets 10% extra damage, and then this, okay. Out of curiosity, that's also not bad in terms of passive abilities. We'll do it. But
There at last.
it's good. It's good. It's technically not my favorite upgrade there, but we will make do. Okay, so now for this one, at the very beginning, we just have we have actually a fair number of enemies to go after, and several of whom have annoying ranged attacks. So we do need to be careful. I'm not really sure which one... Wait, oh, I was not trying to aim at you. We just face tank you. It does make it... This is going to definitely make those blow up, which is going to kill you. I'm not really sure which of these guys we want to summon, to be honest with you. I feel like the zombie dudes are generally not great. Okay, now we get coins, which I think is good, because we did spend fairly aggressively. Oh, that's also
Get it.
item we can pick up.
Good job.
Tis a stick. Okay, so gold. No choice this time round, but we'll nab it, see who spawns in. These swords, I don't know if we saw them yet. They are quick, and they can teleport. So, add them to the list of enemies that can very easily mess with you on this floor. And you'll notice there are a lot of those. Which is why, in general, despite this only being floor number 2, it is, I think, deceptively challenging. Please stop running. Please stop running from me. Oh, okay, well that does work. That was totally what I had planned. Ooh, hello. I did not plan that, though. One moment, please. Thank you. Okay. Here's our money. And now, once again, no choice but to go this route. Still feel like we haven't really seen the enemy that I've been looking for summoning purposes, but obviously wait too long and eventually the encounter's over. So, gonna have to just settle for something, otherwise we're very quickly approaching that point. Well, there we go. Ashes and a little bit of life. Ooh. Okay, so this is one of the encounters that gives us the extra Selene stuff if we do not take any damage. Which, I mean, if we feel like we're strong, could be worth doing. We have yet to summon any enemies, so I feel like breaking out the Hex and having that summonee do a big burst could be worth giving this a shot. Otherwise, we just turn up empty-handed and maybe take damage in the process, but we'll give it a shot.
Dares disturb this monument.
Rise and serve your mistress.
Okay, I was gonna say, he almost landed directly on top of me, which would have been, and I wasn't sure if that was gonna deal damage to me. He certainly has absolutely ginormous area of effect, to the point where I, honestly don't know where I'm safe and where I'm not safe. He did definitely kill our first minion. This guy's a problem. His ginormous area of effect is a huge problem. I would love if you would actually hit the enemy in question. Come on.
For Sister Selene.
I think we got him? We did. Okay. So, that's in large part the reason why I was feeling fairly comfortable about doing this, was because I knew that we could just summon an ad and have them do all the heavy lifting for us and just make sure we didn't get hit. And in doing so, we get a full Selene upgrade. So that's 3 points, which means we are close, but not quite close enough to get you, which would be really nice. If we get 3, that means we're within 1. In the underworld, there are times when you could get just a single Selene point. I think on the surface, for the most part, it's always going to come in chunks of 3. So you could make the case, wow, but this really just isn't doing anything for us when we already have you. I think we just go as direct as we can for this. So we get starts up charge. I mean, that is just about nothing for us, because as we've seen before, it is more so a matter of defeating an enemy so that we can have someone eligible to be summoned. And as you can see, you cannot go backwards on these Selene trees, otherwise it would have been a lot more efficient, would have been very convenient. This is actually a little bit tough. Would have much rather seen more of these. Extra damage for the rest of the encounter, or have our servant deal even more damage. It's even more servant damage. Maybe we go big time on the servant damage, and we just fully embrace the Necromancer build. So we've seen a few things. Oh, give us bonus value here. And speaking of bonus value,
No threats nearby.
this is a well location. So we get healing, which technically we didn't need. Get a little bit of max health along the way, though. That's not too bad. No bonus stuffs here, and no enemies, of course. Ooh, would have loved to have seen these in the opposite order, because this is going to be a dangerous encounter. One that we very likely will take damage in. Can dig that up for more resources, but we have a family dispute to resolve. We need to pick who we're going to side with here. I don't know if I've ever made Hestia mad at me before, so I don't know, mostly just because I very rarely actually take Hestia. I'm not sure what she does. Not sure how dangerous she is. Zeus, I think he just creates circles on the ground that deal damage if you step on them. I think he creates multiple at a time, and they might hit you somewhat quickly, which can be a little bit frustrating, but I might still go for that because it's at least a known entity.
Thank you.
So for you, ooh, this could be very useful. It's another infusion, and it's also one that gains power based on how many fire boons we have. The previous one was an everything or nothing. If you have 3 fire boons, it's active. If you don't, it's inactive. Whereas this one just gains incremental power for each fire boon that we have, and we have 4. So our attacks and specials have +8 base power, which is not an incredible amount, but it's decent. And it has the potential to become quite a bit more than that. Obviously, any other Hestia boon in the future would likely give us more fire boons, whereas the infusions themselves do not ever have one of the boon elements. They're kind of in their own category. Seeing like the sprint, we saw this before. It's kind of interesting. Cast. It does fireball damage and allows you to actually aim it. There are some casts that just continue to make you have the area of effect in a circle around Malinoi. But then there are others that actually allow you to aim the cast at the binding circle. That's the key word there, which allows you to aim it away from you if you would like. Which is generally a good thing, because your cast otherwise has basically little to no range. But it does take a little bit more effort and focus to actually put it in a place that is meaningful. Otherwise, you might just whiff. I think we're taking Slow Cooker. Okay, now Zeus will be displeased.
You can't please everybody all the time, but you needn't have displeased me so.
I'm afraid so. Okay. So Zeus will be mad at us. And he does that. And I know the first enemy we got was a little skull dude. There you go. That was very quick. How much damage that dealt to us. Or with how soon it dealt damage to us. I'm very surprised that those didn't hit us, to be honest with you. Want to get one of those Furies, the flying enemies, ideally, as our Hex target. But it's a little hard to tell who we have gotten most recently at times. That's another thing that can make it a little challenging. Okay, there we go. Nope, that's the wrong button. I dashed when I meant to do that. And then we summoned the wrong enemy because of that. I killed a basic skull dude when I was spending that whole time trying to set it up for a Fury. What a fool I was. Okay, there we go. Didn't quite go as smoothly as I would have liked, but ultimately didn't actually take that much damage from it, so grand scheme of things, it's still okay.
Such bickering is getting us nowhere. Let us direct our pent-up wrath toward our foes.
But that does give you a good example of how this particular hex can be very finicky if there's a huge difference between the value of one potential summon E versus another potential summon E. Okay, so with Zeus, we're still kinda trying to hold out on the major boon categories for more Hera stuff, but Hera has not been showing up much. This is Zeus cast, this is Zeus dash, this is any lightning effects can bounce, can chain up to 4 times, but it primes a lot of magic, like a whole lot of magic. What do we have? Oh, it's the revenge boon that's from Zeus. I thought we had at least one other thing, or is it just that? These are all hex-related things for the most part. Yeah. Okay, I'm not loving these options, and in general, not loving the Zeus stuff we have going on, because we just don't have as many synergies to work with there. Or, if we were to embrace Zeus, we'd have to do that at the expense of potential Hera synergies, and we do have more of the Hera variety going on now. Okay, so this, I think, will be the penultimate room, if I'm counting my rooms correctly. We have 400 gold, so that is good.
Steady now.
Should have enough to purchase some things here. In Charon's ship.
The foremost ship.
The foremost of all the ships. And that will be the boss encounter. Remember, we will get an extra copy showing up of whatever we purchased first, so probably would like that to be a boon, and we should be able to afford another one of those as well. So let's start here with Apollo.
Hear me, on my authority.
And this is the... So here's a good example of this is the basic Apollo cast boon. This is technically a secondary Apollo cast boon. Doesn't deal damage, but it increases the area of effect of our cast. This is a fire boon, so it's more valuable for that reason, because it does tie into this synergy, but it would prevent us from getting a Hera cast boon unless we were to do one of those sacrifices later on, similar with the attack boon here. I mean, the problem is, of course, the longer we hold out on those things, the longer we have a pretty critical gap in our setup, so we are taking a pretty significant risk at this point for that reason. So this is pretty secondary. It's not doing anything in terms of damage. It is the highest rarity, of course, but I guess we'll do it in part because we know we're expecting, yes, to see another Apollo boon here, which we can still afford. And we're definitely not getting rid of... Is this the magic restoration? Yeah, no, there's no way we're getting rid of that, because that is the basis for our duo boon. Foes with daze take more damage if struck from behind. What is our source of daze right now? I couldn't tell you. Is it a revenge boon as well? I think it might even be. And daze reduces the amount of damage that enemies deal. Where is it? Was it over here? No, that's the one we just picked up. Here it is. After we take damage, automatically damage and daze all foes. Afflicted foes have a 20% chance to deal no damage for 9 seconds. So, given how this only activates when we get hit, it's only foes in the vicinity. So if we get hit by an enemy who's close to us, we'll afflict them with daze maybe that means that they won't hit us with subsequent attacks, at least for the next few seconds. So a little bit harder for us to get damage in quick succession. And it is a fire boom, so at least for this one, it gives us a chance to build up some of the extra value on Slow Cooker. And then we technically do have enough monies to get both of these if we really want. And this, I don't think if you purchase them from the shop, you get the secondary bonus, because it would mean we actually get the effects of this from a nectar. But I don't think that's the case from purchasing them. I think that's only if they show up organically. So I think we do prioritize this. And that gives us back burner upgraded, the one that we just got. To be honest, I don't know that that's going to be a huge factor. I mostly just picked it up because it's an extra fire boon, so I'm not thrilled about that. I think we might save the gold, because otherwise we'd be pretty much dead broke after this. And we might see one of those mini shops at the end of this floor that we would like to have some money to use it. In fact, might not even have enough for that at this rate, because that was a bit of a brick, that palm slice. But here is going to be the final boss of this floor, and I'm going to be honest with you, this is possibly the single boss that I've had the most trouble with in the past from at least early access. There's a chance that this boss has been changed a little bit with full release. Don't know, but don't let it fool you that this is only the second major boss we're encountering. At least for me personally, I am always messing up the timing and the positioning of this fight. So this is quite possibly the biggest threat on this run.
Stupid rail. So if you get past me again, what's next for you, Trouble? I've never seen someone go through so much just to see their family. Most of us have to try to stay away from ours.
And it is Eris. It is Strife incarnate, and you are right. We have seen her in the crossroads, and she is still out here in the field and is legitimately a boss enemy. And an extremely annoying one at that.
That terrifying cloud encompassing the summit of Olympus conceals Typhon, in case you haven't heard. I'm surprised you haven't gone to see him for yourself. Anyway, Prometheus is next, then Typhon. But you first.
Well, anyway, thanks for all the spoilers. What?
You're telling me you're here to pick bigger and bigger fights? Babe, I knew we had something going on, but we have more in common than I thought. Come on, let's go.
Alright, so, if you didn't notice, yes, she did just reload a gun. This is actually the second enemy we've encountered with a gun. And she has a variety of attacks. It's actually been a while since I've faced her, so to be honest with you, this is going to be even more of a challenge for that reason. But she just has several attacks that I always mess up the timing for, and in some cases they are extremely punishing when you do mess them up. She also has several attacks where the area of effect is a little misleading. It looks like the abilities are only going to go somewhere, and then they turn out to go a lot further than the icons would suggest. So that's another frustration that I've had with this encounter in the past.
Have some of these.
I'd rather not. Yeah, we are technically waiting for her to summon ads. She still has yet to do. Where'd she go? She does also teleport. Okay, here are the aforementioned ads that we were waiting for. So it is actually a good thing that we saw some here, although you avoided me, which was annoying. Now we can summon you. Okay, I would like to... No! I was about to say, I want to deliberately hit that enemy ourselves, because that enemy is a basic ad. And you're going to get bonus damage against the first enemy, and you wasted it. Okay, so now Eris has gotten her first phase, and she enrages. And when she enrages, she gets a damage multiplier. So at first, she doesn't hit that hard. However, as she enrages and phases again, you'll see that number continues to get higher and higher. Ooh, okay. Hello. Fortunately, we made a point of summoning what I think to be a pretty effective ad. Okay, and this is her biggest and final phase. Yes, that does a ginormous chunk of damage if you do get hit by that. But our ad did most of the heavy lifting there. And so here you see, yes,
She never learns.
in the good cases, when you do get a strong enemy to summon back as an ally, they can do a lot of work for you. And we have, obviously, at this point, put a lot of time and effort and gold into upgrading our Hex. And it is seemingly paying off. So that's good news. I am very relieved to make through that encounter without having taken much damage.
Now the climb.
So that was the Rift of Thessaly. Now we move on to the 3rd floor. And if we wanted to, before we do our healing that actually isn't going to heal us at all, we could put on you to upgrade a common boon to a heroic boon. I think at this point we do have several common boons, like it could turn into Backburner, which would be a real unfortunate boon to upgrade. In fact, is that our only common boon? That's just an upgrade for our Hex. I think it is. So yeah, in that case, it kind of rules out this possibly for the rest of the run. So in that case, what do we want to go for on this floor? It's a little tricky in that case. Could be you. Otherwise, it could be a keepsake for a specific god or goddess if there was someone we really wanted to focus on. Like, for example, actually, taking Hera could be pretty meaningful because we have, as I was saying before, deliberately dodged attack and cast boons, and dash boons even, for a while now, waiting for Hera. And this allows us to upgrade Hera boons, but it also makes it more likely for her to appear. So, I think the earlier we make that happen, the better, and the more value we can get from this, because I haven't really been paying much attention to it. I mean, for the most part, our allies have been doing the heavy lifting for us, which has been a nice luxury to have, but it would be good to at least have the option to power up ourselves as well. So we'll go for it, because this is kind of a free floor keepsake-wise, and then on the last floor, we'll probably use something more boss-oriented, like either the Luckier Tooth or the Knuckle Bones. So let's do this.
The fan.
And then here, yeah, as I suspected might be the case, we don't have that much gold anymore because we've spent aggressively. So we can't afford the Centaur Heart. We could afford the Path of Stars, which would give us another 3 points for our Hex, and as we've seen, it's been really good thus far. And the next upgrade we would probably be looking to take would be the one that allows our minion to tank either 20 or maybe even 30% of the damage for us when we get hit, which defensively would be really nice. So I am pretty tempted to go that route, even if it means at our next full-blown shop we'd be a little bit poor. I think we do it, and obviously we can't even afford to expedite the delivery there, but I think that'll just have to do. And at least this is obviously at the beginning of the floor, so that means we have plenty of time for that to appear. And where is this next floor, you ask? Possibly the single most highly anticipated place that Hades players were looking for. Didn't show up in Hades 1, but Hades 2 puts us on Mount Olympus. This floor is also quite challenging, and does have some fairly unique enemies, including some that will actually fight each other, which is in part why I'm deliberately letting them demonstrate this for me. Those enemies just attacked each other, and in some cases actually killed each other. Oh, that was actually... Is that the... It's just getting upgraded right now? Or is it just popping up because it's basically saying, hey, that's why you got this encounter here? Maybe that's the case. Just take a second, because we go here. we can see this.
Live in the most inconvenient places.
A preview of where we are headed to the top of Mount Olympus. Okay, well, we definitely will go here. I mean, sure, it could potentially upgrade something of significance, but we actually, as I said, have held out on several boons that would have been important, and that's because we're looking for this. Okay, so we can teleport in this area, and when we do, we land and can actually do a large chunk of damage. But there's a limited amount of time you have to do it, and so we ran out of time. That is a dragon that was attacking us initially, and that I obviously had to make sure was going to be the enemy that we summoned. So that's one of the types of enemies in this area, in addition to stronger versions of those Furies that we'd seen before. And this guy, who is the same category of enemy that we saw in the very first room a little bit. There are some automatons on Olympus as well. And I will refrain from giving the details in case we get more info about that. I'll avoid some spoilers.
Olympus, I accept this message.
Okay, so this is more or less exactly what we were looking for. Getting high rarity attack boon that applies hitch, that's a big deal. This, however, would make one random boon become heroic and gain 1 level. We could rarefy it. That is now an option that we have. We would like to do that at some point, although we're kind of hoping we're going to see more Hera in the future. So I think we have to take this. And the thing with Bridal Glow, if it does land on a common rarity boon, that means you're upgrading the rarity a lot, which is nice. And then I think the rarity of this boon is what dictates how many extra levels you're getting. So since Bridal Glow is common, we only get 1 extra level in this case, whereas if we were to rarefy it, or just get a high rarity version to appear in the first place, then we'd get even more levels. But if it were to land on something that is already, say, epic rarity, you're only gaining 1 incremental tier of rarity, so it's not as significant of an upgrade. You still get the levels, yes, but you don't control which boon it applies to. There's a chance that it auto-targets the one that is most impactful, or maybe I just got lucky on one prior occasion, and I was like, oh, that's pretty nice. But I'm not sure you can rely on that. And yeah, you know, it's just a little avalanche happening on Olympus. Don't worry, it cannot damage us. But okay, so we can either go monies or we can go with the life. And bear in mind that though we spent a lot of gold, we actually got a fair bit of gold from just that encounter alone. And although, where are you? Although this does give us a price discount because it makes an object reappear in the shop, if you buy that second object, it does mean you're probably still spending a lot more money in total. So there is something to be said for having a lot more gold. This is technically worth 125 gold in a shop, whereas this is only going to give us 100. But I think this is still, given our setup, going to be more meaningful. Okay, so here we go. Ready? Land here, and it gives us a big slam that does a ton of damage. So usually that will one-shot enemies for you. If you can aim it, if you're decisive and quick enough, it's quite good. These enemies, however, more automatons, I hate them. Because that attack that we just see that guy doing right there has unbelievable range, and it hits a bazillion times. So if it hits you once, it's hitting you. Each individual hit might not do that much damage, but collectively across all the hits, it's insane. And it will absolutely off-screen you. Oh, okay, also things are about to get spicier. Because that eagle is not a friend. And it also is not damageable. It's just a sort of passive, annoying dude who's going to continue to plague us until we complete this encounter. Fortunately, we have once again made a point of summoning a good enemy here to become our friend. We can collect more of this.
A gift from the earth.
Oh! And there is actually a passive upgrade you can make back in the Crossroads that occasionally gives you extra boons, as in the little boon elements, as in that top label there, when you collect a resource. It doesn't give you a boon itself, however, we just got a free fire boon. So we now have 6, which means that does increase the damage from you. So now it's at 12 flat damage, which especially after having now gotten this big percentage boost on our attack means our attack is hitting a lot harder now. There's the gold.
Get that, Golly.
We get this
Nicely done.
to pick up, and then there's also a mini shop here, which, after having just picked up gold, means we are much more able to consider this. However, bear in mind that if we do, it's going to use up most of our money. So let's actually double check the next rooms are. So we could even buy both those things. Oh. Ooh. Okay. We could buy both of those things, in which case it will use up basically everything. It'll be 4 encounters before we get them, so it would be a while. I don't think we need the healing, at least not at the moment. Probably leaning toward this. I think we do it. And then, alright, we no longer have the discounts. We're pretty poor if we do this. I think we do it, though.
Shouldn't take too long.
It does seem like we're just getting a lot of gold on this floor in general. I didn't really remember being the case, but maybe these enemies give more gold per kill. And this is the friendly NPC on this floor. So I was pleased to see this, because if we head in here, you'll notice suddenly things just got a little more relaxing. And this music is almost a carbon copy from some music from one of the previous Supergiant Games, Transistor. So if it sounds familiar, that is probably why. And you may have recognized that voice a little bit, because that is...
What if you couldn't feast any longer? Imagine something so dire that it forced you to put a stop to this way of life. Brought ruin to everything you hold dear.
I know what you're trying
Dionysus.
to do, and it isn't going to work. I've tuned out every bit of negativity, including yours. And since I'm a good host, I'm still going to give you this.
And he may be god of wine, but he's also god of, well, I think, more or less, partying and a bunch of other things. Give up all of our gold right now, which is not much. Did we buy? We did buy both of those things from the shop, so actually that's pretty awesome, because it's supposed to be a significant sacrifice. It's only sacrificing 32 gold, so it's not a big deal. After vanquishing the next Guardians, so the final boss of this floor, we gain that much gold plus 500. So it would be a very useful way to make up for our lack of gold right now. Otherwise, our cast creates a lob with a large explosive. Binding circle forms there, so you can control where it goes. I don't think that this prevents you from getting other cast boons. We don't yet have one. We would like for it to be Hera, but I think we still can have Hera plus this if we'd like. And that 450 damage from an ability that you can repeat. It is slower than usual, this cast, but that's still very nice damage. Or after 8 seconds in each encounter, Festive Fog appears, which repeatedly stuns susceptible foes for 5 seconds, and it makes us deal 50% bonus damage while we're in it. It's pretty useful. I don't know if that also applies to our minion as well. It may not. But a stun is certainly helpful. All of these are good. This is the most straightforward in a way. Then probably this, then probably this. This is more defensive. You know, this is probably best with our current minion build, where we can more easily just hang out and let the minion do all the work for us by stunning enemies and making ourselves less vulnerable while we're waiting for our minion to do a bunch of damage. But we can also do damage as well more easily. So I think we'll go for this. I don't know if there's really any wrong choice there. So that is Dionysus, and as with many of the other friendly NPCs, he gives us the choice of several different boons, or boon-adjacent upgrades. This is tough. This is a tough choice, because hammer upgrades are usually the most valuable. However, that is, on the other side, a higher rarity boon of the Hera variety, and that means it could be a great way to get a nice hex boon that inflicts hitch. But it does require that we go into a mini-boss. And in general, the later the floor, the more powerful the mini-bosses, the greater of a risk that is. I feel like even though we really would like to see that happen, it may still make more sense for us to go here. See if we can get any other good hammer upgrades. So let's do this. Immediately summon the dragon. There you go. We've so much stuff increasing the value early on, or increasing the amount that we charge up our hex early on, that I just immediately killed an enemy and could immediately use the hex. There's no charge up at all. Here you see another enemy that frustrates me a lot on this floor, because you see that attack, the spinny move. The damage really adds up. They can pin you in a corner very quickly and easily, and then just wail on you for ridiculous damage. Okay, that was extremely silly of me. I thought that was going to have enough range to take you out, except it was just enough range to get hit by the enemy and not deal any damage. Oh, and there's the delayed Selene upgrade, which now allows us to have our minion tank some damage for us, so that's nice. It does mean that it takes a little more magic for it to charge up, but as we just saw there, that is of very little concern to us. And what, did we also get this one? Yeah, so more damage in the encounter after activating that hex. We could make it so we can move around our minion by casting our cast, but honestly, it may be more meaningful to just give our minion 10% damage, or 5% more damage overall after summoning it. Every once in a while, we have seen the minion kills an enemy and then just hangs out in a corner, because apparently it's not close enough to see any other enemies and just kind of does nothing. So every once in a while, this could be helpful, but I still think probably benefit more from that.
Such terrifying might.
So that's nice. We did not have to use this. This is something that you can upgrade to get access to, but eventually, once you do, if you walk up to one of these statues, you can invoke it. Oh, it doesn't let you do it once the encounter's already over. It gives you a bonus. Oh, I really thought... Wait, what? Wasn't that hammer over here at first? Then I moved and suddenly it's over here? It's playing mind games with me. Okay, so hopefully this is good, because the room that we passed up on was quite good. Oh, okay. There are some very good options here. Gain 2 additional shells. So 2 more skulls in total. We have 4 to start off with. This would get us up to 6, which is very meaningful when you consider our previous hammer upgrade that fires them all at once in a spread pattern. Means even more of a spread, but it potentially even more of a shotgun effect if we're right next to the enemy when we use them. Also works really well with our current aspect that does more damage per shell that we have used. Now, admittedly, I'm not entirely sure how this interacts with this one, because since you're firing them all at once, does that mean none of them are getting the damage bonus? Or does that mean that it is treating them as if the one, I don't know, to the furthest left gets no damage bonus, then the one next to the right gets an extra flat 12 damage, and the next one gets another flat 12 damage? I'm not entirely sure how that one works with our aspect, but overall, still potentially really good. Same thing here with potential synergies, or also good potential with the synergies at least. Behaves quite differently though. Your shells fly back to you automatically and 100% faster. So basically, we don't need to worry nearly as much about chasing after them once we use them. Otherwise, our shells, oh, we saw this before, fire our charged attack whenever they are retrieved, but they may make us lose magic. I mean, technically speaking, now that we have this and this, I think we saw this at the very beginning before we had those things, but this could be a very good way to set up that duo boon. But the fact that we haven't taken this yet, and it does still make a lot of sense for us, I think we might as well go that route. And then we can go either life or more magic. Make sure we aren't skipping anything here. Don't think so. Okay. I think we're going to go life. We have primed a lot of magic, but, I mean, we've had no magic spending problems whatsoever. So let's go here. Make the choice. Oh, heck, I was gonna say, I thought I just missed that. These guys are also really nasty. I don't remember if we've seen any of them yet. They have a really long ranged attack, and it does a ton of damage. And I think it kinda heat sinks to a certain extent. However, I will summon one here. However, it does mean that sometimes their aim is not amazing against other enemies. It does work there. Okay, now we're getting another wave, though. A bunch of these guys who we saw previously in their unarmored form. Now they're stronger, and they do shoot projectiles, and they do also explode on death, so you do need to be careful for that reason. Oh, okay, wow, long encounter. I'm deliberately not reactivating the Hex, as we said once or twice before, because our current minion that we have summoned is definitely better than the ones we would otherwise get. Yes, there is our life upgrade. And again, would have had the option to invoke that, but opted not to. This gives us flat magic, and we need to not take damage. Again, on this floor, the encounters get increasingly difficult. We do have a decent summoned enemy who could maybe help us out, but I'm not thrilled about the reward. That magic just feels like it's not as significant as some of the other alternatives we've seen. I think we're going to pass on that. And then that means we're going into the next room. We have another mini-boss option, but as we were saying before, we just aren't really looking for Zeus. We want this to be Hera, ideally. Hestia might be the next best, because if nothing else, it's very likely to give us a fire boon, which would further upgrade wherever you are. Oh, not the duo one? It is this, right? Yeah. Which I guess would be another thing that would have benefited a lot from the extra skulls. But instead, which one did we end up settling on? Fly back to us automatically and more quickly. Okay, so we can just spam our attack much more often. Okay, going after you, and doing that, doing that, doing that, and then summoning you. And we can still do it immediately, more or less, so that is very nice. And those guys we technically saw in the very first room, but I think that was the dude that I just let get killed by... Here, I'll invoke this now. Give you a sense of what it does. It varies a little bit, depending on which god or goddess it is technically a statue of, but it helps you deal damage, as you saw there. And a sizable chunk of damage at that. Those are the smoke clouds, the festive fogs that we were getting from Dionysus. I know I haven't necessarily made a point of walking into them, but they're good. They're for us, not for our enemies. They're from us. Okay, so let's take this. Oh.
Let's get a real fire going. No more fussing about merely with sparks and such. Oh, Apollo, get your buttocks over here right now, because I could use a light.
Get your buttock over here. Looks like this is about to be a duo boon, which I am very pleased about.
Right away, dear Lady Hestia. Though, might we please take more precaution not to burn down half the mountaintop this time?
Alright, let's see what the deal is here. So I don't believe I've had this one before. Whenever you dodge or daze causes a foe to miss, you restore 10 life. I mean, we will probably take it. Although, actually, because it's a duo boon, it is not a fire boon, which is a little bit unfortunate. And also, we don't have any dodge, I don't think. Or actually, our familiar gives us a very small chance to dodge. 6%. And we have the daze coming from our revenge boon. So, not a lot of stuff to power this up. But it is technically an extra defensive layer. So maybe we'll still opt for it. Although, given especially that we have that fire boon infusion, I think you could make a very strong case that these are actually, one or both of these might be better than Warm Breeze. We'll do it, mostly just because it's rare. And we're back up at 173 gold. I just want to check. Okay, we do have a gold room next time round, so maybe we still feel okay about spending some monies here. And Path of Stars, I think we might have a total of 3 points remaining in our tree. I think there is an achievement for getting every single point unlocked. I have done it on a previous run, so at least in my case, that is not really something I'm going out of my way for on this occasion, because once you get to the point where we are now with our Hex, we have all the major upgrades. It's, I think, just a few extra bonuses for a few extra instances of 5% extra damage in the encounter after we've used our Hex, and that's just not really reason enough to spend a bunch of monies here. I mean, it still costs less than this boon does, but I still think this is what we're looking for. And then we can't afford anything else, but we'll go here to make some money back, and then hopefully that means at our next shop we can still buy some things, although really we want to have enough. Oh, we're not. Technically not dropping in here. We don't get that big burst of damage. It's a little unfortunate, because that was quite useful. Stop running. There's the stun. Help set us up for this.
Behold the Queen's wrath.
Ooh, there's a whole lot of them. Okay. Wouldn't be a terrible time to do this. That time it was Poseidon. Okay. Well, also was not entirely sure which one of those were our own allies making and which one coming from enemies. But we are also getting a little bit of extra help here. And also a delivery from Hermes. So tons of things going on here. This is, both life, random boon. Those were the things that I think we purchased at the very beginning of the floor, but couldn't afford to expedite. It's Hestia. And this time, we do get our fire boon we were looking for, so we can take the sprint, we can take the cast, or deal more damage to foes that are nowhere near other foes. We did see that before. In boss encounters, at least when they don't have any adds, any extra minions, that is basically a free 18% damage. It's kind of nice for that, and I mean, these things, again, technically speaking, it'd be nice to save them for Hera. I don't know if at this point we feel that's absolutely necessary. Maybe we've done enough of that already. So it's mostly just we want to have foes with hitch on them, right? And once they do, they'll take damage from us restoring magic, and we don't need to hit them multiple times with hitch, we just need to make sure hitch is on. Since we have it on our attack, maybe that's good enough. Now we can start just going all in on fire boons. I mean, this is still maybe worth going for.
Getting warmer.
Slow cooker is now becoming pretty significant. And now we're at almost 200 gold. I think that actually would be pretty significant, because again, at a shop, if we were to buy a boon, we'll get the option to buy another copy of a boon, and we would not yet be able to afford that. But, Lids, what was that big burst of damage that came down, and someone who said they were going to help you, and made the encounter end immediately?
Have you confronted Prometheus before? You mentioned he's been able to elude you. Perhaps he knows he'd stand no chance against you if you fought.
I knew Prometheus prior to all this.
It's Athena.
I suppose our tendencies toward matters of the mind connected us. You know that he stole the gift of fire for mortal kind. Well, he also gave them reason from me. Some of them, anyway.
Okay. So, she is... In Hades 1, she was a standard boon-giving goddess, but that is not the case here. In this case, she's more kind of like Icarus, who we saw on the previous floor, where occasionally she'll show up, typically in especially long encounters, and she, as you just saw, will delete all the enemies, and then after a conversation...
I shudder to think what mortals must have been like before they had any reason. Although perhaps Prometheus ought to have kept some reason for himself.
She will give us...
Perhaps he thinks he did.
Some extra
or has
stuffs.
as much as he requires. Unfortunately, reason tends to be in lesser abundance than most would dare to admit.
I would comment more about this conversation, except that it does venture very far into spoiler territory. Although it is very significant. Basically, there's a lot of similarities between what Athena does and what the next boss does, and that does make a lot of sense that they would have a bit of a history between each other for that reason. Okay, but here are the upgrades from Athena, and we do have 2 options to re-roll, and these are oftentimes absolutely incredible. So let's take a look at what we have. If we don't like them, we can re-roll them. So Task Force. If your hex is God-sent, and it is, that effect may activate multiple times in each location. We get 1 extra God-sent use per location. Now, we already had 1 extra God-sent use specifically and exclusively in boss encounters. This would give us 1 more in boss encounters, so 3 total for those and 2 total for normal encounters. Although, as has generally been the case, we set the super minion and don't really need to reset it at all. That could change as time goes on and we start fighting even more powerful bosses who are actually capable of destroying those minions. So it's not horrible, but we have kind of already done a fair bit on this front and may not benefit that much from this. Your specials also launch a projectile ahead that can deflect, rearming after 2 seconds. So that means it sends foes' strikes and projectiles back at them without us taking damage in the process. The projectile itself does a very tiny bit of damage, but it's very good defensively because it protects us. And then it also, does it mean that the enemies actually do that damage to themselves? If so, then again, I don't remember that. I should remember. But if so, then that means against bosses it would be really valuable. I think it can, at least for projectiles, it knocks them back, and it can certainly do that. I don't know if that's the case for melee attacks as well. It might be. Otherwise, the last spot, your casts also deal a burst of damage in an area and momentarily make you deflect. So basically, take your pick as to whether it's specials or casts. Between those 2, I would prefer special, because that's what we're using more. That's what we have set up more, and is generally, I feel, more powerful with this type of weapon. So I like this the most. The problem is, it is common rarity. But maybe that's fine, because I think the rarity just affects the base damage, and that's not the important part. The deflect is the important part. So let's do this.
Then make haste.
And it was a fire boon, so that means Slow Cooker upgraded again. And at this point, that is starting to add up a fair bit. And now, okay, it's either magic or it's Apollo. I think we will go Apollo. Just want to quickly make sure I didn't forget something in this corner. No, that's just another statue. Okay. Carrying on. Okay, so this is another room that we are not dropping into. Would love to get that automaton in the middle that has a skull next to it. That is my preferred target, but they are fighting each other. They're doing a pretty good job of it. I'm just letting them do their thing for a little bit here. Although you killed the guy I was going to kill. That's not cool. You're also a pain in the butt. Especially when there are this many of you. I really don't like that. That is the thing that can really add up to huge damage. Okay, now I'm going to summon you. And if we would like, we can just let you do all the work for us. And have you demonstrate just how effective you are. You can hide to a certain extent behind that. Oh, okay, that one was not our friend. Or it was right on top of our friend. Which was very confusing. We have a problem. Our minion is standing directly on top of that dude, and apparently his abilities do not have the ability to hit enemies that are right on top of them. They can only hit enemies that are a little bit further away. So he's just stuck. This would be a great situation. Wait, we can. Can't we relocate him? Didn't we do that? No, we did not do the upgrade that allows us to relocate him with the castle. Okay, there you go. I dodged several of his attacks, and yet still it hit me. because it can change the direction of it, and that attack has a crazy long duration. Ultimately, it still didn't add up to that much damage, thankfully, but I still think that move is pretty insane.
Olympus, I accept this message.
Okay, then here, if we're trying to just go all in on the fire boons, then yes, we can continue on this front. However, we also have the option to make our attack hit twice 8% of the time, which is not a ton, but given how much burst damage we have with our attack, that could actually be pretty incredible when it does activate. Or you just go with the consistency with one of these fire boons. This does make us faster as well, and daze. Wait, don't we have our other duo boon? Technically we have 3 if you factor in the Hex. But whenever our dodge or daze causes foes to miss, we restore health. So actually getting extra sources of daze is pretty significant. Let's do this. Slow cooker, even stronger. I did not see you. Again, it's max magic, though. I just don't think that's worth it. Almost anything else, and you might have my attention, but not for that. Okay, now this, I think, is the penultimate room. So this will be the last shop before the boss, or a free life upgrade. We probably have just... Oh, do we have just enough gold to go double boon? I don't think we do. I think we are just short of that. I don't know if this gives gold if we defeat this enemy. I doubt it. If we go in this room and there's a golden urn, we might be in the clear. But I think that might be the only way we can afford double boon here.
All yours,
Follow my light.
Pick that up. There is a golden urn. I still don't think we can get double boon, but we can get this and then get you afterward, which may still be worthwhile. Let's do this. And now we can get a common rarity version of this. There's only 5% chance for our attacks to hit twice, or the one that makes us deal more damage until we take damage, and then it resets if we get hit after 15 seconds of avoiding damage, which, now that we have our minion doing a whole lot of the stuff for us, we can keep this active a lot more often, I would think. Plus, that Dionysus boon as well would also be useful. Otherwise, we get the cast with this. This is the only fire boon here. So that would be the way to improve Slow Cooker even more if we would like. I think we might still prefer this. I mean, if you're thinking percentage-wise, 15% is probably better than just a flat 2 at this point from a fire boon. So let's go with this. And then, yeah, this is what I was saying. Don't quite have enough gold even after that one golden urn to pick this up. We could get this, and otherwise we save up and potentially have enough for a mini shop after this floor. I think we'll still take this, though. Sworn Strike. Oh, the attack boon. Okay. Yeah, not bad. That might have even been one of our top choices. Okay, but anyways, and that's a good example, actually, of all of our skulls immediately returning to us, which we got from our second hammer upgrade. So this is now going to be the final boss of this floor, who we had a few people referring to. I deliberately did not linger on it, because we, of course, have yet to see it as of the full release. But we are about to see him, and technically speaking, as I said, the previous boss is the one that I've, in many ways, struggled with the most. In some ways, I might argue this boss is a little bit easier, even though he comes later, but I have now, of course, jinxed it. So here goes nothing.
It's you.
And it is us. And it is you.
Do you recall a mortal woman by the name of Dora? Her shade responded strangely when I mentioned you, but can't seem to remember what you did.
Dora is our friend back in town, which, for context, yes, this does also enter spoiler territory, but it's pretty critical in this case to bring it up. She has forgotten her past. Apparently, she suspects it was some kind of pretty dark and dreary or some horrible thing that happened to her, so she deliberately forgot it. However, it seemed she had a sort of light bulb moment when we brought up the name of this individual who we are about to speak to and face, so there may be a tie there.
Let's leave it be, Agent of Change. That old Shade's latent memories have more to do with gods and their deceptions than with anything I did.
Agent of Change? I'm not sure what he's referring to, but this is Prometheus. He is a Titan, so he is of the same generation as Kronos, and then in general, the Titans' children are the gods and goddesses. So he is, as you might imagine from him being here, he is going to be our next boss. And the eagle that we saw briefly in one of the previous encounters, that's who you're seeing right here. They have a bit of a dark history, Prometheus and that eagle. We won't go into all that right now, but that is why the eagle was attacking us before, because the eagle is Prometheus's friend now, and so...
Elaborate. Tell me what happened to her. You keep blaming everything on the gods, as though all this is solely their responsibility.
And the deal with Prometheus is that, as you saw from the previous pop-up, he is the Titan of Foresight. So he basically can foresee the future, or at least multiple possible futures, so he has some ability to know what's going to happen next, although he doesn't have perfect foresight in that way. Also, his backstory is that he was the person who stole fire, the entity of fire, from Olympus and introduced it to humanity. He was not supposed to do this, so the gods got very mad at him and punished him in a very severe way that may or may not have involved him being chained to a rock and then having that eagle peck away at his liver. Yeah, okay, I guess we ended up going to the eagle story. But yeah, that's the backstory.
Oh, on the contrary. I take responsibility for mortal kind, but for all their failings, vices, and downfalls, I am not to blame. Nor is this Dora. You tell her I said that. Okay.
And so, my theory was that, well, basically, what has happened with Prometheus is, because he introduced this incredibly powerful and significant thing, fire, to humans, he has sort of then, and got punished for the gods, by the gods for doing so, he has basically taken the side of the humans and said, oh, the gods and goddesses, they're not so great. They do all these things to make the world worse, and they make humans miserable, so I'm on the humans team. I'm against the gods, and that's sort of been his logic for fighting against us. My theory was that the person who he initially gifted fire to may very well have been Dora, and Prometheus, we know, got severely punished for having done this, but maybe Dora, for some reason, was punished as well, and so for that reason, she has forcibly forgotten this experience. Here comes Prometheus. And he has various large-ish area of effect abilities, including this, which will then create fire in the arena in a specific location. He has a little bit of wind-up time before he actually does it, which means you have a little bit of time to control where it goes, which is why I deliberately tried to put it a little bit in the corner, although I was kind of in a bad position to start off with, like here, deliberately putting that in the corner, so it's less of a factor. And he has several attacks that are kind of circular area of effect slams like that, some of which either create a circle on the ground that creates damage over time, or there's another one that looks very similar that actually creates a projectile that shoots out. He's doing the circular one a lot more, though. Usually he does the... Ooh. Yeah, that wasn't perfect where we placed that, but so be it. Here you see, since he has yet to summon any adds, we have not yet had... There's the projectile one. We have not yet had the chance to summon any friends, which is why it is important that we still have some non-hex related things that we can do. We can't rely exclusively on those hexes. Okay, this is his first phase, and this is very significant. Top, top, middle. Top, top, middle. So it's a memory puzzle of sorts. It does a lot of damage if those hit you. It's another thing that you control where it goes. Deliberately putting it in a corner. It's a memory test because he's the god of foresight. And if you don't remember correctly, then it does a lot of damage. And so there are 3 spots initially that... Ooh, that was a bad place to stand. 3 spots initially that you have to remember. However, when he phases again, which he will do at a 3rd health, just say it may get a little more challenging. Okay, putting this in the corner. So once the blue circle gets large enough to fill the red circle, that's when it's going to drop, but it gives you a split second or so to then get out of the way. So you have some control over where it ends up. Okay, really want to get one of these guys, because I think this is our window to summon a pal. Because these guys actually do despawn rather quickly. You don't actually need to kill them. Just a little bit unusual. We killed 2 out of the 3, but then the 3rd one actually just despawned altogether. That's why I focus so much on them rather than Prometheus. And we do have the Hex. I'm deliberately waiting to do it because you'll notice Prometheus is close to being at a 3rd health, which I did not mean to do the charge version of that. You'll notice he's close to a 3rd health, which is going to be time when he phases again. And although we may have some ability to do the memory test, that was bad, our ally will not. Okay, bottom, middle, top, bottom, middle, bottom, middle, top. Was it middle? I might have forgotten. It was not middle. It was not bottom either. So there you go. That's what happens if you miss it. It does a lot of damage. It's not quite guaranteed one-shot territory, but it is a lot. And we do have the, what is it? The Hex, or not Hex. We have an upgrade that gives us, some damage healing over time. Like 40% of the damage that we take, we heal back, which is significant when you take ginormous damage like that. But our pal, our minion, has now defeated him.
But all my wounds shall heal. They always do.
And of that, you can be sure from the Titan of Foresight.
Such wrath. Hold on to it.
Okay, and Titan Vanquished.
Did he know he'd lose?
Does make you wonder. Yeah, that was actually our keepsake that rarefied. We didn't really have the chance to use it. We did pass on 1 or 2 boons of the Hera variety, although we kind of got the big one that we were looking for, so I think that was still okay. We will get the chance to heal in the next room from the well, thankfully, although, as I said, obviously we did take a big chunk of damage from that. A little bit more gold there. The healing does not max us out, but it gets us in at least a bit of a better place. We've yet to use any Death Defiances, though, so that is good. Still have 1 delivery that we're waiting on. What is this one? Boon of Hermes. Okay. So now we're swapping around our keepsake. We could keep this and further rarefy a subsequent Hera boon, but I don't think that's as big of a priority anymore. Instead, we are probably looking for either the Knuckle Bones, which will cause us to take less damage from the final boss, and also deal 10% damage to that boss at the very beginning of the fight. Or alternatively, we give ourselves an extra 101 life Death Defiance, which is slightly less valuable than what we would have from a standard Death Defiance right now, because the standard ones would give us half of our max life. A little more than 101. Basically, I think, generally speaking, you can look at it, since these 2 are quite similar in terms of the use case, I think. In terms of which one is best in which situation, if you don't have that many Death Defiances left, I think Luckier Tooth, you might be able to make a stronger case for it. It just gives you more total life, whereas if you do still have most or all of your Death Defiances, or you found ways to increase your total Death Defiances, which it is possible, but it is rare to do that, then you have a lot of total health collectively across your various death defiances. That starts to add up, and that basically means if you are taking 10% less damage throughout all those various lives, that probably is going to add up to be more than 101. I mean, it's basically, it turns into a math problem in that case. So, depends obviously on exactly how many death defiances and exactly how much max life you have, but that's sort of the approach you could take. Generally, I've gone luckier tooth since, as you can see, that has 3 stars. We've used it more often. So maybe we'll still stick with that. It is also a little bit speculative at this case, at this stage, because yes, we're hoping that we still have all our death defiances and are at high life by the time we get to the final boss, but things could happen along the way. So if we do take some big hits and lose a death defiance or two before we get there, then it would be nice to have that extra death defiance in store. Okay, so then, speaking of store, this is a mini store, and we've seen a few of these Path of Stars, but I still don't really think this is that useful to us. We had 1 or 2 times where we noticed having our minion stuck in a place that was not very helpful, but generally speaking, I don't think that's a big issue. The other thing to bear in mind with these shops that have the long delivery times is this is going to be the final floor. So if it takes you 8 encounters, you might, I think it is possible to purchase things that do not have enough time to appear unless you do the expedited delivery. So there may be a world in which we cannot get this in time unless we do the expedited delivery, so bear that in mind. The number of encounters matters a lot by the time you're on this floor. But I'm not a huge fan of any of those, so I think we're just carrying on here, and as is the case with the final floor in the underworld, if we do make it all the way to the end, minor spoiler, there will be a super shop just before the final boss where we can spend potentially humongous sums of money, so it wouldn't be a horrible idea to save up a bunch of cash for that. And where is this, you ask? It's the summit. We've been on Mount Olympus, we made it through Mount Olympus, but this is the tippity top.
You'll find I'm just as stubborn as you are, Typhon.
So we have defeated Prometheus as the boss of the previous floor. But you may have noticed, oh, there's one particular name that has come up on a few occasions. One that's Malinoid just mentioned there, and we may hear about more here.
Apocalyptic Typhon, lord and father of monstrosity, has fallen to the gods before. And for that ancient bitter loss, he now exacts a most terrible price.
Yeah, so, I'll give you one guess who the final boss is.
He'll soon be falling to the gods again.
This Typhon guy, who theoretically may or may not be the final boss of this game, is the father of all monsters. So, kind of a big deal for that reason. And let us head on up to this final floor where there will now be enemies, and, as I said, gets increasingly difficult each subsequent floor, and this is definitely not an exception. As there are some very nasty enemies of the basic variety and of the not so basic variety we may find ourselves running into here. Ow. Including that one. Oh, there's our Hermes delivery. Now, generally speaking, in this floor, it's worth being very mobile for reasons we have not yet fully come to see on this run, but you'll see soon enough. Okay, it's another infusion. And in this case, we need to have at least 8 of one of these varieties of boons, and if we do, we get a huge damage bonus. Now, we've made a point of picking up a lot of fire boons, so we do have 8 fire boons. We only need to have 8 of one of those. Doesn't matter which one it is, we have the threshold we need from fire. So we can take this and get 25% extra damage. That is quite good. Otherwise, range shots are slower. I think we saw this before, or maybe it was from Medea, something along these lines. Doesn't sound exciting, but especially at the end of this run, there will be a lot of projectiles that may be hard to avoid, so having them be slower wouldn't be the worst thing. And then dashing more frequently, in general, means we can dodge stuff more easily, but I think we will still take this.
I felt something.
Okay. And now we carry on, just making sure no golden urns, as we've seen already before. Sometimes 1 or 2 golden urns can make a big difference. Okay.
Monsters.
Monsters indeed. Oh, that was a bad place to stand. Don't stand there either. Yeah, so in case you were wondering, that's what I was referring to when I said there may be some other big things worth avoiding, worth staying mobile so that you do avoid. Also, that's a trap, in case you're wondering. And then I was a silly Billy and just completely forgot about that and stood on it. Like a buffoon. Well, alright, so now that we've taken a little bit of extra damage, you may notice that regardless of which direction we go in, there will be a mini-boss. And this is a floor on which mini-bosses are a very big deal. But you will always be faced with a mini-boss at this stage, so you're not going to avoid them. They are inevitable. We don't know, there are a few, so we don't know which one we're about to find ourselves facing, but as we've said many times before, we're kind of in a place where the Selene stuff, not all that meaningful anymore, so I think we're going for a triple palm, and we will see which mini-boss we get here. The answer is this guy. Spawn of Typhon. So yeah, Typhon is the father of all monsters. And that means, ooh, we're gonna have to fight some of those particularly big monsters, including this guy, who is very strong. And has some area of effect abilities like that do hurt a lot. And then he also charges. Those are the basics. I do not believe he ever summons ads. I also have no idea what he's doing right now, which does concern me. He is big enough, though, that we can seemingly shotgun our attack pretty consistently, which is nice. That's a horrible place to stand. No, that wasn't hitting us before, and I got greedy and thought that was going to continue to be the case, even though it wasn't. Maybe it was just luck. Usually he alternates between charge and the big circular slam. So if you can kind of remember, he chases you and then he charges. Well, that's what I mean, I guess, by charge. And this is the slam. So if you can remember which one he's done most recently, you have a pretty good feel for what's coming next. There's still another golden man there. Yeah, so I don't really know what the deal is with the timing there to figure out what is going to deal damage to us and what isn't when he charges. And when we do this while he's charging, I think it is because we are technically deflecting. Courtesy of that Athena boon earlier. That was bad. I was not really prepared for that. This is going to be the... Oh, I thought that was going to be this... Yeah, circular slam. Okay. Which one's this? This is that. That. Shoot with that. Power this up. He does obviously have some other melee-ish attacks that we've now seen a bit of as well. Those are generally not as significant as these ones. So just deliberately, as you can see, trying to play this relatively patiently, especially because we actually need to fight this a more straightforward way, in which we... Ooh, don't rush in now. We actually need to do the damage ourselves, rather than rely on our minion. But there we go. Not too bad after all, but make no mistake, that guy can absolutely be a run-ender.
Children can be such a nuisance, so they say.
Alright, well here's our reward. It's a triple palm upgrade. Which options do we see, though? We do have this, which does help against bosses like this one, but to get 6% extra damage is hard to get excited about. Foes perish in a blast. So this is area of effect. This is more single targety. But all this stuff is pretty lackluster. We do have 2 rerolls. We could use one here. It feels a little silly to use one on a palm upgrade, but we don't have that much time left to make this happen, so I guess we'll still do this, since we're mostly... Well, actually, let's just say there are some situations in boss encounters where even this could be quite useful.
Adequate.
Okay, so now, should get that to 195, which means hopefully we can still get some stuff at an upcoming shop. Now this room doesn't have anything particular in it other than a bunch of stuff that explodes. Oh, trying to make a point of avoiding those. But avoiding that while also avoiding the enemy is a little difficult to do. Oh, we can summon. Oh, never mind. We could summon, but it's a little late for that now. Okay, this is not a trap, even though it looks like it. Something we can retrieve, and then this is a place where we can fish. Hold on. Ooh. There we go. Very nice. In general, as I may have mentioned before, the later the floor, the more valuable the fish is going to be. So, once again, it's for Selene. And is that they might always be for something? They're usually for Selene. I think you can sort of see the shape of this is sort of the crescent moon of Selene. I mean, just look at our hex right next to it. The fact that we could use a hex to potentially power through this does make it a little more palatable, but still, I mean, the benefit is just so minor, and an enemy on this floor could be so powerful. So I just don't think it's worth taking the risk. Let us proceed instead. More explosive stuff. Oh, apparently we did get something. I'm not sure what it was. Oh, okay. Nice and short. Okay, now this, I think we saw on our previous run in the Underworld. If you have enough difficulty modifiers active, it's basically the same type of encounter that we just saw and turned down in the previous room. Just we don't even meet the prerequisite this time, so it's not even an option. And then now we have ourselves, it's a little hard to see both of them on the screen at the same time, but it is another guaranteed and unavoidable mini-boss encounter. So again, there are 2 potential mini-bosses we could face. We don't know which one we're going to see here. So we're just picking based on the reward, and it's either Hestia or it is Apollo. And I'm thinking about not this, but maybe... No, not this, the other duo. This one could mean it's worth trying to find additional days stuff from Apollo. Wait, what? How exactly does whenever you dodge your days, we restore a little bit of life? So technically, if we just kept on dodging or dazing, then we could heal more than we take damage, but those are all small enough percentage chances that overall you're definitely still going to take more damage than you're healing, especially against enemies at the end who deal huge chunks of damage. So yeah, that is something. We could also get a little bit of extra value on the slow cooker infusion if we were to go toward Hestia. I mean, you might also give us a fire boon as well, but I don't think that's a huge factor. And more likely, we're just looking for a cast of any variety at this point, which might mean Apollo would be better. Either way, you're probably fine, but here we go. Let's see which one this is. It is an Eye of Typhon. And I mean that quite literally. So this encounter is going to get extremely crowded, and I'm going to run into a bunch of those things, apparently. I'm kind of deliberately saving our Hex for this. Am I allowed to summon? No, I'm not allowed to summon the big eyeball. Darn it. Okay. There's a bunch of little enemies and a bunch of projectiles that get created, which does make this rather annoying to deal with. Basically, you can attack the eye itself, or the place where the eye came from, over here, if you would like. However, it is immune at various points in time. Or you can attack the large eyeball that is floating around chasing after us. If you do the latter, then eventually, if it goes down like this, the main central eye will try to recreate a new eye, and in doing so, as it just did, it does a bunch of damage to itself. So it's kind of an indirect way, a more indirect way of dealing a bunch of damage to the main target. But if it gets low enough, as it may be now, then it will just stop doing that. It will stop creating the extra copies, and instead you do, oh dear, that's a ton of damage. You do need to just go up and finish the job here. Yeah, those little projectiles, small as they may seem, do still deal a lot of damage, so that added up quite quickly.
Should have stayed shut.
But obviously, that was a very difficult encounter. And that is also why I had kind of hinted at how, when we were trying to pick our keepsake before going through this floor, it was not guaranteed that we were going to keep all of our Death Defiances going into the final fight. If we were, I was trying to use our Hex to summon the big eyeball that rolled around, rather than one of these little guys. If we were able to do that, then I think it would have been a little more effective, but unfortunately, it seems as though the game does not let you do that. There are some big enemies that the game does let you summon as minions that you probably wouldn't think would be eligible, so I was hopeful it would work there, but apparently not.
Olympus, I accept this message.
This time, we can exchange for a different special. I don't think we want that. We were saying maybe the cast is the way to go, and it is also a fire boon. Otherwise, we get this chance for our attack to hit twice. Epic rarity. It is nice in that way, and we do get a big burst of damage from our attacks, but I think at this point we just like to have some form of cast. Any extra lore here? Anywhere? I don't think so, so I think we're just carrying on. Don't go after these things. They do explode and deal damage to you, or at least during the encounter itself they do. Okay, so this will now be the penultimate room, the shop, before the final boss fight, and at this point, we have some monies to work with, not a ton. This is a room in which we will be able to spend a ridiculous amount if we had it.
Hey, make short work of the big guy up there.
Thanks, Hermes. Okay. Any more golden urns? Not seen any here. Every once in a while, yep. There's one hiding over there. A little deceptive. Okay. So, just under 400. Remember, we're getting a discount on our first purchase. Oh, that golden urn is the difference between us being able to afford this Zeus boon and not being able to afford it. It is the most expensive thing we can afford here, but I'm not sure that it's the best. Because, as we were saying before, it just didn't seem like we had a ton of Zeus synergies. So I'm a little reluctant to go that route, although we might technically be eligible for a Zeus duo of some variety, and we already have several duos. So that is a little tempting for that reason. However, I feel like this might be the most significant. That does get us, yeah, to max health. So that'd be nice, going into the boss fight. But we'd like for the first thing we buy to be the most expensive, because we're going to get it discounted. If we do this, it's $255. Not sure exactly how the numbers are going to change once we finish doing this stuff. That puts us, what, $134? I think we can still afford both of these things. We will get a copy of this once we purchase you, but we're definitely not going to be able to afford that. I think we do this.
I'll take it.
We get a Charon card in the process. That means we've spent 1,000 gold total. And this is a double upgrade for isolated foes. Minor spoiler, this boss is not always going to be isolated. Burst of damage. Well, one of the reasons why I upgraded this previously was because this boss is not always going to be isolated. Or make our cast bigger. Yes, it's a little helpful, but I just don't know that that's going to make a huge difference. I think over the course of what is about to be a very long boss fight, yeah, it's not going to be active all the time, but this might still be the best option. Actually, hold on. This is our last chance to use our rerolls. So if we have anything else in mind, this would be an opportunity to try to target that. I'm just not sure what we would be looking for, even under ideal circumstances. Maybe the special or the attack. I know they've already been upgraded a little bit, but those are obviously our main sources of direct damage. So, sure.
Let's see what else.
There is the special. I mean, Revenge Boon is maybe not a horrible thing against a boss. Oh, actually, hold on. What was the Medea boon that we got at the very beginning? Because I thought we had picked something that I was kind of taking specifically because I thought it'd be best against Typhon. If we use Death Defiance, the enemy who causes us to lose it takes 15% of its life as damage. Which, with 4 Death Defiances, that's actually another reason for us to have taken the Lucky Tooth. We have 4 Death Defiances total. And that means, as long as it is Typhon who actually gets the killing blow, which again, if there are some adds, technically it might not always be Typhon, but that's 60% damage just from die. Now, of course, we technically can't use that last Death Defiance. Well, no, we can use the Death Defiance. We'll just have a little bit of life left at the end. So I was going to say, we're just going to go down simultaneously. No, we can use all of them. So technically speaking, we only need to do 40% damage to Typhon if he's the one who kills us repeatedly. And then we have a self-sacrifice setup. It is also going to be a little bit challenging to set up our Hex, as we saw with some of the other mini-bosses, because although, again, there will be some adds, the timing is not always going to be ideal. And it may be tricky to optimize if we are trying to be picky about which ad we are summoning. That gets a little bit tricky. But I think we'll still go for this. I think that's probably more or less the best option. Oh. It's a random boon, which means it's less expensive, which means we actually can afford it. However, what are the chances that a random boon is going to be more valuable than healing 150, well, more like 130 life? I think this is probably still more useful for us at this stage. So let's do that. And then that means, I'm pretty sure I didn't skip any golden urns over here, but even if I did, I don't think that'd make enough of a difference for us to be able to afford anything else at this stage. So here we go. We're going into the final boss fight with full life and full Death Defiances, which is definitely not a given, especially on the surface. So that is good news. Our Hex is definitely the biggest tool that we have to work with when we have it accessible to us. Ideally, it's with a good ad, a good minion, because otherwise we've seen there's a big difference. It can be much weaker if it's a weak enemy. And then the special and the attack. The attack probably would have been an even better one to upgrade with the palm, but so be it. That gives us decent damage, and then we have a few infusions that are active, giving us even more damage on top of that. This duo boon, which we haven't really been able to see how much direct damage that has been dealing, because we've had other things doing most of the hitting for us, but here goes nothing.
Into the storm.
And if you were wondering what this whole Typhon business was about, there you go. He's kind of big. Also, we can't see his life bar. That's actually one of his most powerful attacks. And that one's really hard to avoid. That one does a ton of damage. He also has a wind-like effect. Oh, actually, the auto-returning attack is incredible against Typhon. So we can he's so big that we're basically shotgunning every time we do this. And I can just do it repeatedly, which usually would not be a possibility. Oh, this is really hard to avoid. So this is where I've had said several times before how there's going to be lots of projectiles, so slowing down the enemy projectiles could be meaningful. This is what I was alluding to. And this is where, ow, he is about to summon in some adds. Exactly which adds we have now seen. Not the ones I would have preferred, I don't think. But we're going to have to settle for that.
Grows and grows.
So that one has a main projectile, and then it has a bunch of other secondary projectiles that actually heat seek you, which makes it really hard.
I have more lightning bolts to spare.
But then we have this phase, where Zeus comes in and helps us out. If you're wondering what the gods and goddesses have been doing this whole time, don't worry. Zeus is coming in to help. And there you see, oh my goodness, how much burst damage we can get there. So it gives us a window in which to basically attack Typhon without him being able to hit us back. This might be a chance for us to get a stronger enemy. Oh dear. I don't remember having seen that. So I'm kind of deliberately letting these guys spawn in large part because I do want a different ad. Typhon is going to come back pretty soon. Now we get you, who I think is going to be much better. So this, that heat seeks. Those also have the shotgun effect, which can add up to a ton of damage. Oh, and then those guys are actually really annoying as well. This, and then he can do it twice once you get to this second half of the fight, which I think the Zeus encounter is basically the halfway mark, although obviously it's a little hard to tell. Oh, that was a bad place to go. It's a little hard to tell when he doesn't have a life bar. He's doing it again. And he's dead. Huzzah. There is the Typhon encounter. Typhon vanquished. And he is the final boss. So that means the run is now complete. Meticulous planner. Which may mean that I don't know, that may just mean that we were really slow, which I could believe it. The keys there, as we were kind of saying just before we finished the fight, were the Hex, which, especially once we got this guy, I think made a very big difference. And then the attack, being able to spam this. I mean, the whole downside of that hammer upgrade that we got at the beginning was that it was potentially going to give us a lot of downtime in between being able to use the attacks, but since the skulls then started returning to us instantly. I mean, look at this. Technically, could just spam it like this. I mean, at this point, I think it's more so shooting them one at a time because they're actually getting a little bit staggered with their release time. But point being, that combo is really good because you can spam it a lot. And because Typhon's so big, all of them hit, even from long range. So that became a huge source of damage. Then obviously I was doing this every once in a while as well. And it was very effective. The Typhon fight usually does not go nearly that quickly, nor do we usually take that little damage.
Some gemstones.
But we get some gemstones, and this is the crafting material that you get from defeating Typhon, and it is obviously quite rare for that reason. And much like with the end of runs in the Underworld, for early access, once you defeated the final boss, defeated Typhon, you went through this door, and the narrator, Homer, basically gave you an excuse for why you have to just go back to the crossroads. So we never saw what the true final area was, and never really got any resolution, any closure on the run. But we've been working toward the summit of Olympus. Are we finally going to get the chance to actually see the other gods and goddesses in person? We got a brief cameo there from Zeus. But what is going to happen here? It's an achievement for doing this. I'm very intrigued.
An Ethergate.
What is that? Of course, we saw what happened when we finished a run going down, but is this going to be different when we go up?
To all my family on the mountain, let me pass.
Oh. Oh.
So bright.
It's an extra barrier. The Palace of Zeus. Extra barrier that stops intruders from getting in here, but we can proceed.
It's
wow.
daybreak.
It is daybreak. Look at that. That's pretty incredible. That's beautiful. I don't even know if it allows me to run right now. This is the default speed that it's giving me. I'm going to try to dash and sprint. Nope. Have to go this speed. And honestly, I think that's a good thing. Because it basically forces you to slow down, take it in, and obviously having personally played early access several times before, this is not my first time having defeated Typhon, but for many people who are playing Hades 2 for the first time, after the full release, this will be your first time defeating Typhon, and this is a pretty incredible way to take that all in. Oh, now we can run, and now we're hearing some music as well. But this is the thing that's so, at least speaking for myself, I was waiting to see in Hades 1 was, when can we finally make it to Olympus, meet the gods and goddesses, and find the people who we've been trying to fight for? Or I guess more so the case for Hades 2, fight for, or at least join in the case of Hades 1. Will we see any of them here? Someone's singing. But who is it? These statues? They have specific gods and goddesses? That looks like,
Lord Ares.
Oh, that's Ares. Okay, so these, that has to be Dionysus, right? Hephaestus over there. Oh yeah, she's saying them all. Okay.
Lord Hephaestus.
That's cool. The music as well. That's clearly Aphrodite.
The majestic palace of Zeus stands resolute and strong, for the combined might of the gods has kept that seat of power safe, even from such monstrous adversaries as they face.
Okay, so...
These must be just the palace grounds.
So obviously, the primary antagonist has been Kronos. He's sort of the mastermind behind this, what is functionally a war between him, his minions, other titans like Prometheus, and the gods and goddesses on the other side. That's the side that we're on. However, we also have Typhon, who he has released, the father of all monsters, in part just to create chaos, but also to cause all this trouble on Mount Olympus and force the gods and goddesses to fight there so that their forces are spread and they can't focus entirely on Kronos himself. And so by defeating Typhon, we help to fend off all the monsters that come with him and bring peace once again to the mountain.
Lady Aphrodite. Artemis. Lord Apollo.
Those are statues for a lot of people, but not everyone who got cut. There's a lot of people who didn't make it. Where's Hestia? Where's Poseidon? Where's Hades? Oh, I doubt Zeus is putting up statues for his brothers. These two are brother and sister, though. It's kind of fitting that they're next to each other. But who is this? Oh, that's Zeus and Hera!
She arrives.
We actually get to meet them! And is it Apollo? He is technically the god of music. So that would be very fitting for him to be the one singing. I don't know if we should speak to him first. I feel like we should speak to him first, because the game might send us back to the crossroads as soon as we speak to Zeus. And is that Rocky, who's technically one of the familiars, who we chose not to take on this run, but may or may not be here with Apollo, and somehow gotten up to the summit? Oh, okay, here are more of them. And that's probably just a more or less random bird who happens to look like Rocky. But there's Poseidon.
Grandmother.
Okay. Demeter.
Lord Hermes.
Hermes.
Great Auntie Hestia.
Hestia. And you also get a little bit more of a full body view of them, whereas if you ever get the boons from them, I think it's more or less always just their upper body. So of course,
Lord Uncle Zeus.
Zeus and Hera, they have to be at the end of the table, the end of the palace.
Queen Hera.
They are king and queen. Okay, but let's chat with Apollo.
Best not to keep your lord uncle waiting. I'll be right here.
Okay. Fine. We'll talk with him first. We have to salute, right?
Moonlight guide us.
Apollo is going hard, though, with this song.
Welcome, young lady, to our family's glorious abode. You have our thanks for seeing to it that the monster Typhon failed to reach us here.
Yeah, so the reason why this place is still so pristine is because we have helped the Olympians to fend off Typhon and Typhon's other monsters, and obviously this is the primary place that the Olympians have also been trying to defend, rather than leading the charge through the underworld to fend off Kronos. And that's obviously where he is.
And you have our regrets that my lord husband left you to confront that horrid creature on your own.
He did help a little bit.
The others are still fortifying the palace. Forgive our rudeness.
Yeah.
There's nothing to forgive, Queen Hera. I am honored to have met you and King Zeus face to face and seen the glory of Olympus firsthand. I owe it to your generous support these many nights.
Technically, we have seen some gods and goddesses firsthand, as we saw previously. We got, we did get an appearance or two from a god or goddess along the way in the flesh, rather than just the little boon and message, basically, that we get from there. Because I guess it's easy to forget, and I guess if you're just jumping in, it may not have been super clear, but when you are getting the boons from those gods and goddesses and you're hearing from them, they are not there in person. That is basically just them projecting a message to you, and that's in part why you can't actually respond and have a conversation with them unless they are actually making a full-blown appearance like we saw with, say, well, not that he's a god, but Icarus, and, you know, the people who actually join in and help you in the encounter.
From highest peak to the...
Come now, Malinoe. We have a shared objective, after all. And so long as Kronos sits upon your father's throne, that objective remains incomplete.
So technically, this isn't exactly the first time we've seen gods or goddesses in the flesh, but it almost is.
Hurrying her off when she only just arrived, husband? Although we've little here for entertainment other than Apollo's plucking. At least our enemy shall be back at our gates before long.
Athena is maybe the biggest exception to that, and technically there have been a few other ones. In the Crossroads, certainly we've seen some.
I don't think I can remain anyhow. I need to consult with the Witch of the Crossroads. She may have thoughts on how to rid ourselves of both our great foes at once.
Hecate is technically a titan, not a goddess, but we've also seen Artemis is occasionally joining us directly in encounters, and also occasionally in the Crossroads as well.
We shall find a means of that, I have no doubt. And until then, we shall be better prepared to meet their charge.
And even Nemesis, I believe, is a goddess. She's a less prominent goddess. Sorry, Nemesis. But there are a few other people like that we've seen too. I do love, I mean, we've seen this, I'm pretty sure, even with just basic Zeus boons, but actually, I think it's more visible here because the middle of the screen is still visible, unlike whenever we've received a Zeus boon in the past and we're looking at the 3 boons offered there. You can see his hair is basically a storm cloud, which is so clever.
Go on, my dear. We're unaccustomed to expressing gratitude, as you can plainly see. Until such time as your Lord Father and his own queen are restored, there's little cause for cheer, I think.
Perhaps soon enough.
Okay. So the fight continues, and now we can speak with Apollo.
You did it, Sunshine.
He's also, yeah, God of Light, so calling us Sunshine's fitting.
An inkling of doubt, especially once I saw Typhon for myself.
Now, I mean, Zeus did help us in that fight. You did not, Apollo, at least not directly. We did obviously have a ton of boons from him.
He was quite large, I'll give him that. It's a pleasure to finally meet you face to face like this, cousin. You play most beautifully.
I would hope so, being the god of music.
Oh, anything to take our minds off of what's happening. At least you bought us a bit of reprieve so I could play again at all. Typhon is going to be back though, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, Typhon technically isn't a god or goddess. He's some other kind of extremely potent being. But he seems as though he's kinda sorta immortal, as if he were a god. So, which is to say, he will be back.
I'd count on that, but I'm going to be back as well. For now, please bolster your defenses and make ready for the monster's next attack. Now I had better go. My headmistress is expecting my return.
Alright.
Can't you just contact her by boon? I'll
Oh.
go one forth for you in case that works. And thanks for everything, cousin.
Well, there you go. That also gives us a little bit of inside information as to how those boons work. Yes, they are basically a form of message, but I don't think there is such a thing as a Malinoe boon.
That's for you.
Or maybe there is. That's cool. So, of course, it is awesome to finally make it not just to Mount Olympus, but the actual palace at the summit of Mount Olympus, after having played through all of Hades 1 and now defeated one of the 2 final bosses in Hades 2. So there's been so much build-up waiting for this moment, and having done this a bunch of times in early access before this actually became available. So it's really cool not only to be here, but to get this more natural closure to the run, where it doesn't just end abruptly and doesn't really feel like you get the full fulfillment from defeating Typhon that way. But I am also very pleased with this boon of Malinois. So what happens if we use this to return?
I'm accustomed to being on this side. I see Erebus, I think. Wait, Headmistress, is that you? Can you hear me?
This is cool.
In the name of Hades, Olympus, I accept this message. Malinois, if you can even hear me yonder, I bid you to return. We have matters to discuss.
Although, one, you could potentially call this plot hole that this does introduce to a certain extent is, well, why don't the gods and goddesses just exclusively communicate via boons? And we could do that from even within the Crossroads. Because I think in the past, at least for Hades 1, they'd kind of made a point of saying that, oh, it's so far away, the underworld and the surface, that it's not easy to communicate between those places, and you need to be outside of at least the deepest depths of the underworld for it to even be a possibility to communicate with those other people, and that's why, in the case of Hades 1, and also to a certain extent the case of Hades 2, other gods and goddesses are not especially familiar with your character until you start venturing out, because it just, you could make the case that it makes it feel a little strange that you need to venture out in the first place to chat with all these people. I mean, obviously, that's maybe more so would be a critique of the way that Hades 1 progresses plotline-wise, whereas Hades 2, we're not just venturing out of the Crossroads to see the rest of the world and explore. We have a mission. We are trying to fight and defeat not only Kronos, but also Typhon and protect Mount Olympus, and we can't just do that by chatting with all the gods and goddesses.
I have to go now, everyone. Please, take care, and let the others know I'm sorry to have missed them. I'll return.
Okay.
Return to Shadow now.
Can time not be stopped? Question mark? So used to that saying, time cannot be stopped? Alright. So, that is our first successful surface run, at least as of the full 1.0 release. And it included some very interesting new material.
I never imagined I'd see the Palace of Zeus with my own eyes. But I'm glad I'm back.
And as I said, at least for me, and I imagine many other people as well, that was one of the things that people were most interested to see, and it just never happens in Hades 1. So for it to finally be here in Hades 2 is really cool. Did they just get rid of the brooding corner altogether? You used to be able to walk over to this corner, there's a button to brood, and then you'd see a portrait of your family, and you would reflect a bit on how much you wanted to see your father, mother, and brother again. Okay, but we did also potentially get a little bit of plot progression with Dora's backstory, so I am curious what happens here. We are also probably interested in gifting to her, because we are trying to max out our relationship with her and with Odysseus. Those are the two we've been prioritizing.
Such pitiable offerings as this are hardly worth my notice, witch.
No, but seriously, thanks. Nobody ever gets me anything. Besides you, I mean. That's nice, you know?
I love that duality of Dora's character. It's so fun.
It's nice for me as well. Having you here as company means a lot, so it really is the least I could do.
Okay, so we progress our relationship with her, but now for the full-blown conversation.
Dora, I hope you don't mind, but I asked Prometheus himself about this old connection that you feel. He's cagey with his words, but does seem to remember you in turn.
I've said this before, but in turn is their Supergiant Games, the developer's favorite phrase. At least in the game they made 2 games ago, Pyre. they just threw that phrase in everywhere. And it got so annoying. It's like, it doesn't add anything to this sentence. Sure, it feels kind of like old-timey in a way, which is kind of cool. It fits the vibe, but if it's every other sentence, which at times it felt like in some of the previous games, that becomes very excessive and very distracting and does break the immersion at that point. So I'm hoping that is not going to be as much a thing in Hades 2. And I don't think it has been thus far, so I'm not as concerned, but it is a little bit of a trigger for me in that way.
Kind of weird of you to do that, especially since it sounds like he's trying to kill your family up there, but thanks. What do you say?
Kind of weird for you to strike up a conversation with this dude who wants you to die.
Well, he said he's not to blame for mortal kind's failings and such, and that neither are you, and asked I tell you so on his behalf. Before attacking me, per usual, of course.
Right. Naturally.
Whew, that's a relief. All this time, I figured if there's any two individuals responsible for all the badness mortals have to deal with, it's Prometheus and me. We're talking stomach aches, heartaches, taxation, lying, cheating. You name it.
It's utter nonsense, but do you have any idea what he could have meant?
I mean, presumably there is some truth behind it, and I do think it, given Prometheus's history, likely has something to do with the discovery of fire, or at least the introduction of fire to humans.
Nope. But since you're the one who's talking to him on the regular, maybe you could ask. Now that we're curious.
Okay.
We'll figure this out.
Oh, that's just decorating. Okay. Alright.
Thank the fates.
Thank the fates indeed. What does Moros have to say?
Something the matter, Lord Moros? You seem more ill at ease than usual. If there's additional bad news you're at liberty to share, I'm listening.
Oh, it's nothing of the sort, at least for now, Princess. It's just this sensation of uncertainty. Not just in the grander scheme, but even from one evening to the next. I'm still unused to it.
I assume he's referring to how, I think I mentioned last time, for those of you who are new to Hades 2, Kronos has captured the fates. So there's a lot less of the whole everything is preordained destiny thing, and a lot more just random chaos. And Moros is brother of the three Fate sisters. So he's closely related to them in that way, and would have reason to be accustomed to them doing their usual job. And so it's strange when they are not. And concerning.
Pleasure in the unexpected. But even those of us who never had the gift of foresight struggle in the way that you describe. For me, it helps to focus on a present state of mind, in being here right now.
And I think Moros has said that he has a bit of foresight of his own, under usual circumstances at least.
The now. Thank you, Princess.
Okay. Speaking of foreseeing...
The fates would have me do their bidding.
I don't think we have any new stuff to check out there. We do have more rubbish to clean up. And now you know that there's a little more behind this relationship that we have with Eris, as it's not just arguments in the crossroads, it occasionally escalates to a full-blown fight.
Sounds like there was a big commotion on Olympus last night, and I wasn't even around thanks to you. How'd it go?
Just great. Almost got eaten by the father of all monsters trying to distract him from destroying everything in sight. You really had to be there.
You know, babe, when somebody misses out on a good time, you gotta play it down. Like, oh, it wasn't anything that great. Or they'll feel bad they couldn't make it.
Note that this is coming from Strife Incarnate. I think you can manage.
You should feel bad.
Well, now, I don't.
Ouch. Giving her a little bit of her own medicine. Taste of her own medicine. Okay. Oh, Odysseus is over here. What are you up to? This is not your usual spot.
I've seen you here alone more often lately, Odysseus. You're thinking about your family, aren't you? Some potent memory from your past.
Ah, goddess, you may see through most of us shades, but your empathy for me is a bit misplaced. Penelope, Telemachus, and I, we're cordial with each other still, but how to say this without sounding callous?
Yeah, Penelope is his wife, which, for those who are unfamiliar with the Odyssey, which was the story of Odysseus' journey back from the Trojan War to his home, which took something like 11 or 13 years. Don't quote me on that. But it took a really long time because he basically faced an unbelievable number of various mythological creatures and other things that made his journey more difficult along the way, which is why it's the Odyssey became as huge of a story as it now is. But he was doing that all to return home to his wife Penelope. But we haven't seen Penelope here in the Crossroads, nor do we hear much about her. So it does make you wonder what that means. Like, what happens when husband and wife die, and then are they both in the same part of the underworld, in which case they can just continue to be together, or is that not the case here?
Please speak your mind with me. I'm certain you're not callous.
My mind wanders not to matters of family, but to the siren's blasted song. I scarce got to hear it even once whilst navigating through their waters. I wanted desperately to cast myself into the sea just for a better listen.
And this is one of the things that he encountered on his way back from the Trojan War. He was sailing through an area that he heard, in more ways than one, had sirens, which is the type of being that Scylla is, but I think this was separate from the Scylla encounter, more so just generic, large group, many sirens, who were notorious for having these extremely powerful songs that were so entrancing, they made all the sailors who sailed through the area get completely enamored by the songs and either shipwreck because they were so distracted by this type of song, or they would just jump off the ship, and basically it was a trap so that the sirens could then proceed to eat the sailors. And so Odysseus, being Odysseus, hearing that he was about to sail through an area with all these sirens, said, yeah, we could just avoid... Well, I don't know how feasible it was for him to avoid that stuff altogether, but for whatever reason, he decided that, no, I instead want to have all of my sailors use earplugs, but me, I'm not going to have earplugs. Instead, I'm going to have all my crewmates tie me to the mast of my boat so that I can't move and I can't do anything when I hear the sirens call. So I can't run into the water, dive in, and get myself killed, but I am going to hear these incredible songs. And so he's like the only person, the only mortal at least, who's heard the sirens' calls and not succumbed to the sirens. And so that's why he's saying he is so intrigued and wants to go back to hear those songs again.
The siren's song? You can't expect me to believe that Scylla's incessant drivel is the source of the great tactician's concerns of late.
But I don't think this was Scylla in this particular case. As I think I said in the past when we first encountered Scylla, when I have read the Odyssey a while ago, but when I did not remember there being mention of Scylla specifically being a siren. I thought she was more like a three-headed dragon or sea serpent of some variety, which maybe starts getting somewhat close to the definition of siren, depending on how exactly you interpret sirens. But that's why I very much thought that was a different thing, because the whole thing with Scylla was it was basically diverging paths in the ocean, in the sea, Mediterranean Sea, I suppose, where Odysseus could go one of two ways. One way, Charybdis, big sea monster, or really more directly, humongous whirlpool created by that sea monster that he estimated would basically sink his entire ship and kill him and his entire crew. So he decided that was probably not the direction to go, instead opted to go sail past Scylla, who, as I said, obviously we've seen here, but in the Odyssey, I thought was a six-headed monster, and so he estimated that if you were to sail through quickly, Scylla would basically, I thought fly. Like, fly through. Again, I thought she was like a sea dragon, or like a dragon in general, six-headed dragon. Fly through, abduct 6 of his sailors, and kill them, eat them. But then if they continued sailing, they could escape before Scylla came back to take anyone else. So basically it was a matter of everyone dies or only 6 people die. And he decided probably better to have only 6 people die. But that's why that encounter has a much different sort of dynamic to it than the whole I deliberately want to listen to the siren songs thing. I'm pretty sure those were 2 separate things, and in this case, technically speaking, the developers are deviating a bit from the mythology, which obviously is, it's hundreds of years old, if not thousands of years old in some cases. So it's not as if it's firmly established exactly what the correct and incorrect interpretations are. But I think they're introducing a little bit of their own interpretation here by sort of combining 2 things that in the Odyssey at least would be separate. And the Odyssey is, by most accounts, alongside the Iliad, the 2 textbooks of sorts, the most definitive sources of Greek mythology, to the extent that anything can be a definitive source when it's that old.
Spare me the ridicule. I'm dead serious about this. You weren't with me on the surface there and wouldn't understand.
Seemingly not.
It's powerful stuff.
Again.
Okay. I think we are good here. See, we can... Oh. Hello. We can get some stuff out from here. Still don't really know what that is. What it does. Return Dora's latent memories. It's an incantation here, and we have all the stuff to do it. Let's do it.
Dora wishes to remember. She's ready. My true friend Dora, for you this is aimed. Regain the memories the Lethe claimed. So mote it be. Whoa. Dora, wait.
Okay. I don't know if we're going to immediately be able to chat with Dora about that, or if we're going to have to wait for another run. But that's big. That's big. And now we can see... I know I kind of brushed over these things quickly before because it obviously had some spoiler stuff, but there are some 2 big, really big incantations that are each related to the final bosses that basically require you to get a bunch of the crafting resources from defeating those bosses. And these seem to be the ways to permanently defeat, or at least get sort of the resolving final defeat of Kronos and of Typhon. So for Kronos, you need to defeat him 5 times to get all the Z sand, the Zodiac sand, and then 1 unknown resource that presumably will only reveal itself once we've progressed more of the plot. And then also an unknown resource, potentially the same thing, for Typhon, but then the V lens, that's what we just picked up from having defeated Typhon, and in addition to 1 Zodiac sand. If you're like, Lids, how come you only have one of both those things when you've been doing a bunch of early access? Long story. Basically, the developers forcibly removed the ones that people had accumulated who had played all this stuff in early access, which you could complain about, but I think is pretty justified, because otherwise you could have everything ready to go and basically complete the game almost immediately as soon as the full release came out, which I think is probably not the right move. So, probably for the best that they made it so it was going to take longer, even for people who've been playing the game for a while. So yeah, can't get either of those now, but those are technically the 2 big incantations, the biggest crafting things that we're trying to save up for. Otherwise, still don't really know what the deal is with this. I mean, I guess pretty much all these resources are disposable, so it's not a horrible thing if we just keep on using this stuff. Mostly used with incantations involving soul and defiance. We still have yet to see any of that stuff, so I don't know. I don't know. Otherwise, this stuff is useful, because that's how we upgrade our familiars, which we have not yet fully upgraded. But we do only have a limited amount of nectar, and I was hoping we might be able to gift to you, except we seemingly cannot do that. Let's chat with Hecate, and then maybe we'll check back in with Dora.
Your victories against Typhon, have you there anything to show for it? Any sort of specimens or samples of his flesh?
We do. That's the reward we got that we were just talking about. So I do wonder if Hecate might in fact be about to reveal what the secret additional resource we need is going to be.
I hope you like hideous eyes, Headmistress. Is there an incantation that you have in mind requiring such filth?
Perhaps. Hold on to all of that for now. But when the time is right, we shall turn all that monstrous power back against itself, and rid this world of that fiend for good.
Okay, so it does seem like eventually it is Hecate who will give us the details for that final crafting recipe.
Yes, Headmistress.
But for now, we wait. And we do see the witches, these friends that are hanging out next to Hecate, who we would normally fight in the Hecate fight, but now they are they're just here, hanging out in the crossroads. We'll double back to see if we can chat with Dora, but she is not here. She may have fled all the places where she would typically be, so I think we probably will need to wait one more run before we can have a meaningful conversation with her about that, unless we're going to get what could be a major cutscene about it once we enter a different area or something like that. Okay, so this is our Charon shipment, which was a really big one, so even after having done a full-length run, it's still not ready yet. So still waiting on that. We don't quite have enough for Nightmare, which would usually be the thing that I would save up for, except we can sell a little bit of fish. No! Ever so close. But not quite close enough. Alright. I suppose in that case we might as well load up on a little bit more nectar, since that has been something that's been a little hard to come by, in large part just because we passed it up in favor of other things, generally speaking. Okay. Oh, it could actually be... Hold on. Could be that the reason why we can't gift anything to Odysseus is that he may be looking for a resource that we don't have right now. He is. He's looking for the bath salts. So if we were to purchase some of those, we could potentially progress our relationship with him as well. And again, since we're not really going to end up buying anything super meaningful, super expensive on this run, I guess we might as well spend a little bit more. And never mind. Next time we encounter Odysseus, we may look to break that out. As for Nemesis...
Really must be making Typhon mad. What's the plan there besides that? Get so caught up in all the glory that you lose sight of our real enemy?
They're both our real enemy, make no mistake.
The father of all monsters represents an urgent threat. You'd know it if you saw him for yourself. If Olympus is laid to ruin, Kronos prevails. We wouldn't be able to stop him.
Yeah, so basically Kronos is leading the fight on two separate fronts. One, he's leading directly. The other one, technically Prometheus is sort of the one leading the charge for him. At least, it's a lot easier for him to coordinate things with Prometheus. It's a lot harder to do any sort of coordination with Typhon. So that was just kind of a release him and point him in the general direction you want him to go and hope that he destroys your enemies. And not so much of your own teammates. And that's in part why, when we've been on the surface, on Olympus itself, we saw the automatons were technically the Mount Olympus defense force that were kind of glitching out and trying to fend off the various threats, the monsters, that came along with Typhon and or Kronos.
Speak for yourself. The underworld never needed any of those gods. Kronos wouldn't even be here if not for them.
That's not exactly true. Kronos did predate all those gods and goddesses, so he existed before they did. From that standpoint, you are objectively incorrect. Then those gods and goddesses did make him mad and cause the original war between the gods and goddesses. From that standpoint, yes, that is true. But then those gods and goddesses then proceeded to chop up Kronos into a bunch of little itty-bitty bits and throw him down at the deepest depths of the underworld in Tartarus, which for a long time did work. So you're also wrong from that standpoint, kinda, sorta. So, I don't know, Nemesis. Sounds like you kinda need to get your facts straight.
Thank the fates we have you to deal with him.
Thank the fates.
You know, the ones that Kronos has captured. That we don't actually have on our side anymore because they are under his control. Those fates.
Moonlight guides you.
Nobody move. Strife and Doom are both here. That's true. Honestly, that's a fair reaction. And if your cause of death is lightning, maybe you are especially concerned about Doom incarnate. And we don't have a lot of stuff to plant here, but that's okay. Grow what seeds we have in there. And then anything else from you? Hypnos? Seems not, although it does seem like he's going to have a pretty important role to play when we're going down and using our dreams to coordinate with our brother Zagreus.
Take care, Father.
That is a statue of Hades, in case you were wondering why our character said that. Okay, just checking to see if we're going to get a surprise appearance from Dora here. Kind of doubtful of that.
Commander?
Oh, Skelly is gone as well.
Have faith in him for me.
Okay. But anyways, I suppose with that, we have now completed our first successful surface run as of the full release. So we have finally seen what there is at the tippity top of Mount Olympus after having waited... When did Hades 1 come out? Many years ago. Like, at least 5. So, probably 5 or 6 years ago, maybe? So it's been a long time coming, and it was really cool to finally get the chance to see it. But this is the right time for us to wrap things up here. So next time, we will be probably starting to engage a little bit more with some of the things I've been holding back on for spoiler reasons, so we'll probably turn back on some of the difficulty stuff, or at least engage a little bit more with some of the stuff in and around that type of thing, so we're getting the full Hades 2 experience. But thank you all for watching, hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you next time.